Hello world, hello world. 5 minutes late, but as I always say, when we have guests, we are allowed to be late. Um, Power forward list. If you were here last week, we did the small forwards and shooting guards, point guards. We have 3 lists left, 2 more positions, and then the top 10 all-time list. We are getting really close to the end. We are joined by, of course, Legend of Winning, aka Low. Welcome. This is the episode you said you wanted to be on. We're glad to have you, albeit in a interesting position, but you made it here nonetheless.
Yo, my bad for the bad quality to everyone who watching. I'm in the middle of moving, so like it's just like really bad timing. Matter of fact, like I'm just like literally in the middle of moving, so my bad. But I'm here. I missed the point guard one because of me moving as well. So, but I'm here.
Who needs a professional setup, man? We're here to talk about some power forwards, and that's all we need. The way this works is a bunch of people, including us three, all sent me their top 10 power forwards of all time. If you were in first place, you got 10 points. If you were in 10th place, you got 1 point. And then I had to compile the scores, and we have a cumulative top 10 amongst all of us. There were 19 people involved in the making of this list. So the maximum amount of points you can obviously get is 190 points. We're going to start all the way from the bottom and work our way up as we always do. There were 19 names given to me in total. The lowest amount of points received was 1. I'm not going to say what the most points was, but there were 19 names sent to me. Low doesn't seem there's something wrong with 19 names.
How many people did you ask?
19 people, 19 different names. So one per based on average, I got 1 different name per list.
Oh my word! This night. Okay. All right.
It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna start with 19th place, and we're gonna keep it pushing real quick off 19th place because this guy had 1 point.
Same guy from last week.
Same guy from last week.
Oh, okay.
Shout out to Penn. He has Scotty Barnes at 10. So we're just gonna keep it pushing. Shout out to Penn. He wanted to waste the vote. There you go.
Well, yeah. Why? Okay, whatever.
Yeah. He did it with the small forward list. He did it with the power forward list. It is what it is. Scotty Barnes had 1 10th place vote. Okay. So there was 18 names. 18 names. Scotty Barnes. Yeah, Scotty Barnes is what it is. Okay. On to the actual list. I'm not even going to put a timestamp for Scotty Barnes. We're just going to keep it pushing.
Yeah.
18th place, technically last place. This guy had 1 19th place vote. It came from Pirate. Before I reveal who it was, I'm just going to he gave me a little synopsis. He felt he had to defend the take. So I'm not even going to say the name. I'm just going to read off why he put this guy on the list. He said, the best defender on earth most of his career, 10 times first team all defense, before the DPOY, but would have won multiple, led the NBA in first team defensive voting 5 years, 2 times in the ABA, led both the ABA and NBA in field goal percentage, and he had all-time hustle, intelligence, grit, and was an all-time teammate. Do you guys have any guesses who he may be describing?
At first, I thought it was Rodman, but if you're saying ABA,
yeah,
is it Dan Issel? That's how you pronounce his name?
It is not Dan Issel. It is not Dan Issel. It is the Secretary of Defense. I believe that's his nickname, or maybe I just made that up. Bobby Jones. Bobby Jones.
I didn't know Bobby Jones was in the ABA. Bobby Jones is a
yeah, he played in Denver in the ABA, and then obviously went to Philly in the NBA. Bobby Jones was Pirates' 9th place.
Real quick, place? That wasn't even.
Yes, he was 9th. No, he was 9th. He was 9th. Bobby Jones is someone who actually I didn't consider for the list at all, but amazing defender. I will say, amazing defender. Yes. Anyone who wants to go back and watch, I haven't watched much ABA film with him. Haven't really seeked it out, but I also don't think it's very available. On those Philly teams, fantastic. Came off the bench for a large portion of it, but amazing defender. 6'9", extremely long arms, could protect the rim, could guard in space. Extreme, like to Pirates' point, all-time hustle. Was willing to do anything to get a defensive stop, pretty much. Like there wasn't, he put his body on the line. He'll play with physicality, and then on the offensive end, not the most skilled, but would fill lanes in transition, would finish around the rim. Just basically just found ways to impact the game. The quintessential intangibles guy, I guess. Definitely wouldn't consider him for the top 10. He wasn't much outside of his defense. He could pass a little bit, but wasn't much outside of his defense. So that probably wasn't going to be enough to make the list for me. But I just felt like Pirate for the second week in a row had to give me a whole paragraph explaining his picks. Last week it was Adrian Dantley. This week it was Bobby Jones. Shout out to Bobby Jones coming in 18th place. That's all we really have to say about him. In 16th place, there's a tie between two names. They both received 3 points. The people who had them was Penn, had one of them at 8. And Dream had the other guy at 8. So they both got 8th place votes. And no one else even had them on their list. One of them is Amar'e Stoudemire. And the other one is Rasheed Wallace.
Okay.
John D, is there any name that you want to start with of those two?
I think Rasheed Wallace is really good. I didn't consider him for my top 10. I do think Rasheed is an underrated scorer, especially as a mid-range shooter. Like his early days in Portland, he was like around a 43 to 45% mid-range shooter, and he was great around the rim. I don't want to talk about like his the attitude and the getting thrown out of games, because there's somebody on my list that gets thrown out of games. But yeah, I just didn't consider him as good as my 10 on my power forwards list.
I see your number 10. Interesting. Lo, you seem very disappointed in the names you're hearing.
Yeah, so far I thought we were gonna get. I'm surprised that there's 19 different names that can be thrown out. I can see 15, but 19 is a bit of a stretch. Stoudemire, really, really good offensive weapon. Still limited in some regards as an offensive weapon, but really, really good. But probably the worst defender out of any name that could be thrown around in these conversations. I think that kind of holds him back, and also a very, very, very short window of time that you can say that he was like dominating, like maybe a 5 to 7 year stretch, and even some of those years he's like not 100%. So like in contrast to a lot of other players, kind of messed up, and it also was a beneficiary of Steve Nash's greatness. So it's not as if like we're talking about someone who can kind of handle his own. He went to New York, attempted to handle his own. To be fair, I think he did a really good job, but the efficiency kind of dropped a bit when he was asked to create. And again, after that, like 1 year in New York, it really kind of fell off the cliff really, really quickly. I'm not the biggest Rasheed Wallace fan. I think he's a really good scorer and creator, but I think that his defense, I think if anything, his defense is slightly overrated, because in every other place that he played alongside with, because he's not like he played in the NBA prior to his years in Detroit. But as we've kind of already alluded to with the antics and stuff like that, it's hard for me to like give him a lot of props on the defensive side of the floor when you're not able to like finish games, especially important ones. So there's that. But I don't think neither one of those players belong in the top 10, especially when they were playing in real time. They weren't even like consistently top 4 or 5 in their position.
So you don't think they deserved 8th place votes, is what you're saying?
No.
Well, you said there's 15 names.
You got KG, Dirk, and Duncan, and then a few years of C Webb. Like you're not even like concretely top 3 in the own era in which you play in. So like, what am I arguing here?
Maybe it was just a really good era. You did name some really good names.
You did name some guys.
Yeah, you did name some. I'm like, shit, you moved to them. I mean, I guess.
True.
But you did say there's about 15 names you deem valid or fair. We've got through 4 of our 19, which means there's 15 names left. So every name from now on should be valid in theory. So that was tied 16th for Rasheed Wallace and Amar'e Stoudemire. We now want to tied 14th. These guys had 1 extra point, so they had 4 points. Just want to make sure I get everything correct. Dream had this guy in 7, so all 4 of his points came from Dream. The other guy had 1 point from ZZ, 1 10th place vote, and then an 8th place vote from Ron. I'm gonna start with the 7th place vote from Dream. It's Chris Bosh. He had Chris Bosh in 7th place, and then for ZZ in 10 and Ron in 8, it was Dennis Rodman. Which of those two do you want to start with, Dennis Rodman or Chris Bosh?
I think Dennis Rodman, during his Pistons days, moved his feet fantastically, if that's a word, but moved his feet very well in space, was a really good rebounder. do think he kind of fell off a little bit once he got to the Spurs and once he got to the Bulls as a defender. But the reason I couldn't put him on my list was the offensive game was almost like non-existent. So, and as for Chris Bosh, I think Chris Bosh was a tough cut. There's two guys. There's a lot of guys, honestly. This is my favorite position, but there's a lot of guys where I was like, nah, maybe. But I just didn't see him. I couldn't see him to the level of some of the guys I had on my list. So
I just learned something new. John D's favorite position is power forward, man. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at outside of Kobe,
Kobe fan, by the way. Yeah, Kobe fan.
Hey, but listen. Love
Bro.
Zach Randolph, Paolo. I'm a big Paolo guy.
Spoiler alert: Zach Randolph isn't on his list.
But I still love the player.
Nah. I see your number 10 and 9. Zach Randolph could have made the list, but that's besides the point.
I agree everything you said about those two. Rodman, I mean, when you're a negative throughout some of the more important years of your career offensively, it's really hard to like put you on this list. And then defensively, I think he gets a bit overstated, especially in those Bull years. Bosh is just tough just because like I feel as if like taking a lesser role really did lessen his impact on the team. And I think a lot of people tend to forget those Miami Heat teams were able to do really well in series, even when he wasn't on the floor or he wasn't producing at the levels in which he probably should have been producing. I think it's 2012. They went through a good portion of that run when he wasn't even available. And they went through tough series against like the Boston Celtics and I want to say the Pacers as well without him. So that kind of, in my opinion, just the lack of availability. And then obviously post the LeBron era where he probably could have made an argument for this list. And, you know, as we all know, blood clots, unfortunately, kind of cut his career short. So there's that. But grossly underrated. I believe.
Grossly might be a stretch. But yeah, I do think he does get underrated, mischaracterized, probably because people just remember him as this guy who used to just pick and pop on the Miami Heat. But I think he improved a lot defensively in his Miami Heat tenure. That was a big difference from his Toronto days where he was more of an isolation scorer without much playmaking abilities. And that's why I wasn't very high on him. Going back and watching them Toronto teams, it's like, this is never going to be viable. But his adaptability, ability to change his game, become more of an outside shooter, especially from the three-point line, something that he didn't really showcase in Toronto, something I deem very valuable. But overall, just not as good as the guys I have on my list personally. And then the longevity was cut short due to things outside of his control, which is always unfortunate. And then Dennis Rodman, all-time defender. I'm not going to give you a placement. I'm not going to tell you he's a top 8 defender. I don't know. All-time defender, one of the very few guys who I think throughout their career could guard 1 through 5. I don't think Pistons Rodman could legitimately guard the 5, but I think Bulls Rodman could. But I don't think Bulls Rodman can legitimately guard guards. So like over his career, I think there was times in which he could guard all 5 positions, but not at a particular point. And then also the greatest rebounder of the modern era, maybe him or Moses Malone.
You don't believe that, but okay.
Andre Drummond can rebound. I don't know what to tell you. But amazing rebounder on both sides of the ball. Just a knack for knowing where the ball's going to come off the rim, and then all time just hustle and dedication for getting the ball off the rim. Now, wasn't very skilled offensively. Wasn't much he could do, but there is value to getting your team extra possessions, and he did that. That was still very valuable. So that helps him with his offensive value. High motor, high energy, all of that stuff. Ultimately, I just don't think he was good enough to make the list. That's really going to be the consistent theme of these guys who weren't on my list, but we are getting closer and closer to the top 10. We are now in 13th place. This guy had 1 more point than Dennis Rodman. And it's someone who they get compared quite a lot. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. John D, you had him at 9. Dream had him at 9, and Jordan had him at 10. So I'm going to go straight to you, John D. Why is Draymond Green better than Dennis Rodman?
The fact that he was viable on offense. He was viable on offense, and he's one of the greatest. He's one of the greatest defenders I've ever seen. The versatility and the fact that now I was looking at this from 14-15 to 18-19. Every single top tier half court offense the Warriors had involved Draymond Green with the playmaking and the facilitating, the fact that he scored a little bit more than he does recently back in those days. And the defense, the ability to switch on the perimeter, to be able to guard on the perimeter, to be able to quarterback the defense, the ability to have the play recognition consistently. The reason I couldn't have him higher is because, once again, with the stuff with Rasheed Wallace, Draymond Green is not scared to get thrown out of a big game. Like, I don't understand why, but that takes away some of your value, in my opinion. But if you have all-time defense and you're able to be so like valuable in an offense like that, with Steph Curry, with Kevin Durant, with Klay Thompson, and you're able to be part of why that offense is so good, I had to have him on the list.
Yeah, I didn't have him on my list. Neither did Low. Why didn't you have him, Low?
Offensively, yeah, better than Rodman, but still not to the degree in which I would have him on my top 10. And I think even some of that offensive value was a bit inconsistent throughout the course of his career, in particular his shot making. The other aspect of Draymond that I'm just not completely sold on is some form of like longevity to the extent of some of the other names on there. And obviously it's harder for me to put him above players who are like legitimate first options. I agree, however, defensively, probably doesn't get the justice that he should receive because of only one DPOY. People kind of look for awards. Also, isn't like a box score defensive guy, so there's not racking up a bunch of stocks. But if you just watch him, obviously he disrupts a lot of sets, kind of plays passing lanes, kind of call things out, quarterbacks the defense per se. And I think there's a lot of value in that, but not enough to kind of supersede a lot of what everybody else has done. But I'm pretty high on Draymond, really close to make the cut. And for me personally, I believe he was the second best player on that team instead of Klay Thompson. I've been pretty adamant about that.
I agree with that. Draymond was, I'm not going to say my toughest cut, but this is the first name where I legitimately considered them for my list of all the names that have been said thus far. All-time defender, I'm comfortably going to say he's a top 10 defender. I'm comfortably going to say that of all time. Viable offensive player, especially in his prime, like 2016, 2015, Draymond Green was a viable offensive player, someone who could handle the ball, someone who could shoot the ball back then. Shout out to Game 7 Draymond. Someone who elevates their game in the postseason. Their defense ramps up. Their intensity ramps up. Their offensive aggression ramps up. And then the longevity part is something that did hold him back. And then just overall the offensive proficiency. It's too far below the guys I had at 10 and 9. And then even the guys I was thinking about alongside Draymond's, it's just tough for me to get him over those guys when he's so offensively limited. Like, it's ridiculous how limited he is offensively. Like, I don't need to go all in on him about it. But like, especially once Kevin Durant arrives, he's not even looking at the rim anymore. So how much value is there to someone who needs to play with an advantage every time down the court? I don't know. So wasn't enough to make my list, but he did come in 13th place. 1 point ahead of Dennis Rodman, which I think is fair. 1 point ahead of Dennis Rodman sounds about right to me. So good work, guys. On to number 12. We are getting close to the top 10. These guys aren't particularly close in terms of the score, but 12th place. This guy had 8 points. The people who had him in are Real Talk had him in 10. Ox had him in 7. Ox is in the chat, so he knows who we're talking about right now. Ox had him in 7. Ron had him in 10. And KB had him in 9. I believe that's everyone. Yes. So 10, 7, 10, 9. This is obviously Sacramento Kings legends. Chris Webber. I'll start with this one. Chris Webber is someone who, he was another one. He was on my, I had like 3 names who were tough cuts for me. Chris Webber and Draymond were 2 of them. I didn't know what to do with Chris Webber because, to Lowe's point earlier about guys weren't the top 3 power forward in their era, Chris Webber wasn't a top 3 power forward in his era, but that's really not his fault. When he's peaking at the time of Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, and you could argue early 2000s he was better than Dirk, so you could argue he actually was.
I must say, but you got Malone though in those late 90 runs too, so there's that as well.
He was never the 3rd best power forward in the league.
No,
he never was. He never was the 3rd best power forward in the league.
Right.
But to be fair, it's not his fault. It's not his fault. Amazing passer, one of the best passers on this list. Looking at it, maybe the most skilled passer on the list, maybe. Definitely in the top 5 for sure. Someone who could face you up, knock down the mid-range jump shot, amazing post player, very elite footwork, touch, all of that. Amazing stuff, just very skilled. The issues were defensively, he didn't stack up to his contemporaries of the era. The longevity didn't get to the level in which you would want it to. And then he wasn't as dominant in the playoffs as some of the other guys were. All of those things, they do culminate into just missing the cut for me. But he's another one where I could have got him as high as 10. I could have got him at 10. In fact, I'm not even sold on my number 10. The more I look at him, I'm saying, maybe I'm reaching. But Chris Webber was amazing. Is there anything you guys want to say about Chris Webber?
I'm still debating if I want to have him at 10 or my other number 10. Just like this was one of the tougher things for me because when I watch Chris Webber, the athleticism, the face-up game, the ability to get to the rim, putting the ball on the floor. You brought up the passing. I just do think my 9 and 10 were probably better defenders. So that's what led me to keep him off the list. But it's not hard to be convinced. I'll say that. It's not hard to be convinced that he can be put at number 10. But yeah, Chris Webber, he was really good, man. He was really good.
No.
Yeah, C-Web is the name. Oh my goodness, I'm over. C-Web is the name that I was definitely like. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep him on or not. At default, had him on because I just assumed that he was. The problem with C-Web is that I would go back and I would rewatch or just look at some of the box scores in the postseason, and it's like, man, I thought you would have been a little bit better than that in the playoffs than I originally expected. But I always knew that defensively he's not stacking up to many of his contemporaries. I always knew that the longevity isn't there either. The in and out of the rotation with the injuries kind of always hurt him. And I always kind of knew that the inconsistency in the postseasons were going to plague him a little bit in these convos. I just didn't know how bad they were until I really went back and rewatched some of the games and also just kind of looked at some of the box scores. And it's like, bro, like you're dropping pretty precipitously with a lot of your accuracy. So that kind of hurt him. And then the free throw line shooting is also kind of bad as well. But similar to you all, he was on my list originally, and I kept going back. And some of the names on there, you know, I'm paying homage for sure. I'm definitely paying some respect to some names. But I just feel like I think I'd rather lean on that side of the aisle than trying to put C-Web in convos that I might not 100% agree on. But he's close, though, like really, really close.
Yeah, one of my 3 toughest cuts. SMN R&DM said, I know nothing about Chris Webber, but was he a better passer than Draymond Green? Also, I'm going to start hating if KG is in top 2. I'll be watching. Yeah, keep watching. We'll find out who the top 5, top 2 is, whatever. Yes, I think he's a better passer than Draymond.
I do too.
Just with his ability to draw attention, to create advantages, and then know how to play out of those advantages. Very good feel for interior passes. They were running split action in Sacramento before the Warriors were doing it. So he still had that feel for just being able to read defenses, see the overplay, all of that stuff, find guys on the back cuts. And then if you want to talk about creativity and flash and all of that stuff, Chris Webber had that in droves. Was able to bring the ball up the court himself off a rebound and like very ahead of his time in terms of the skill set. The issue is I think sometimes he over-indexed on relying on skill, and that would lead to him making some finishes tougher than they needed to be, taking some jump shots when he didn't need to. And it ultimately led to his efficiency suffering a lot in the postseason in certain settings. But as a passer, yeah, there's not many better than him, personally, in my opinion.
I'm looking at this list. I'm looking at this list, and I can't really, as a passer, he has a very legitimate argument of being the best passer on the list.
Yeah. If someone said that, I definitely wouldn't argue with them. That's how good of a passer Chris Webber is. I implore you, if you're not going to take time to watch some full games, watch some passing highlights, man. I've seen some Wilt passing highlights going around on the timeline. And now people are like, oh, Wilt could pass. So,
and then I saw somebody then say, man, maybe Chill was right about Wilt pass. Oh, God. So we just can't appreciate shit. All right, cool. All right.
Yeah, now he better than Jokic. But find out next week where Wilt Chamberlain ranks on the all-time top 10 centers. But anyway, we are now on to number 11. Number 11 had 11 points. So of everyone who didn't make the list, to Lowe's point, they never really got many points. So like these guys did just get a few rogue votes here and there. Okay. The top 10, you're going to notice the points do increase by quite a bit. But this guy with 11 points, Tyler Hoop Venue had him in 10. Chill had him in 10. Real Talk had him in 9. KB had him in 10. Penn had him in 9. Carson from Nerd Sesh had him in 10. Dream had him in 10. And Jordan had him in 9. So a bunch of people had him in. They all just had him really low. So that's how he got his 11 points. We are talking. I'm gonna start with you, Lo, because he played for your team. We are talking about Pau Gasol.
Yeah.
So why was Pau Gasol not on your list?
Crazy enough, I've actually gone back recently and watched a lot of that era of Lakers. Maybe probably in the attempt to defend Kobe rather than watching Pau. But I think
I feel that.
I think there's a couple of reasons that kind of kept me off of Pau. I think a lot of those early Memphis years, he's just not as aggressive as a scorer as I would like to see out of him. Defensively, he's not where he needs to be either. And I think his defensive best, which I think is underrated in 2009, 10, 11 as well. I think they're grossly underrated, but it's a very short window of time. By the time he gets to the tail end of his Laker tenure and then in Chicago, I mean, then he's just stiff. He's stiff as a board in Chicago. It's not really giving you much defensive effort. But obviously, Pau's value stems from who he is offensively. Pau is also the other player on the list that I would assume would be in the conversations as passers as well. So that I think is also an aspect of his game. Could put the ball on the floor as well and create for himself. But I when I go back and I rewatch a lot of Pau in when he was with the Lakers, which I think a lot of people may know him for, it's way more reaping the benefits of someone else playmaking for him rather than him shot creating than I actually remembered, especially in the 09 finals. And then in a general sense, when I would go back and watch his Memphis years, he's just not as aggressive as a scorer for a good portion of those years that I would like to see out of him. And so when you kind of combine all that together, there's a lot of other names that I just feel like I would put ahead of him. But Pau, to be fair, Pau and C. Webb were the two that I had in my top 10 first. And then I kind of did my due diligence, and I may have reached back a little bit too far with a name or two, but I feel comfortable with it just because I didn't want to throw names out there that I'm just giving them just because I may have watched him and didn't do my due diligence with two other names.
John D.
I just considered him a center. I just looked at basketball reference. I just looked at basketball reference and was like, oh, he played 10 years as a center and 8 as a power forward. So we're just gonna go with him being a center. So that's why he wasn't on my list. I do think I could have made an argument for him being maybe 10 or 9. But yeah, I just looked at him as a center.
Which is fair.
Yeah, he did play the 5 for the Lakers. So
yeah,
there is that.
This idea that, the biggest myth that I keep having to debunk with people, there's this idea that like Bynum was playing significant minutes at any point during those, and he just wasn't. Like Powell was effectively the 5 and Odom was the 4, and that's how they kind of just ran a lot of lineups. So to be fair, that's also true. Even I learned that out about Bosh too when I was trying to figure out he played way more 5 than I originally realized. So yeah, that's also true.
Small ball taking over the NBA. Same with Amar'e Stoudemire. I just didn't expect Amar'e to actually make anyone's list, but he did play a lot of 5. Shout out to Dream. I Pau just screams power forward to me. So I guess I'm doing the Steph Curry's not a point guard logic. Pau Gasol is not a center logic, I guess. Just power forward in my mind. He was one of my 3. Him, Chris Webber, and Draymond were my 3 toughest cuts. If I were gonna rank them, it would have been Chris Webber 1, Pau 2, Draymond 3. Pau, the longevity stuff was a concern for me. Not as high on a few of the Memphis years. I do think once you get to like 06, 07, I do like that version of Pau Gasol. 08, 09, 10, all of that stuff is valuable. Once you start getting to 2012, 2013, Pau takes a step back. But then I do think he has a nice little resurgence in Chicago. Not to where this is going to make him on the list, but a nice resurgence in Chicago for a couple years, especially that 2015 season. We were talking about that. I think we were talking about that on Friday. How Chicago, Pau Gasol, and that 2015 Bulls team was really good. Pau was a huge part of that. Amazing post scorer, really good touch with both hands, right hand, left hands, can make mid-range jumpers. Did expand his range to the 3-point line a little bit. Someone who would be willing to shoot him later on in his career. Really good passer. Didn't have the same ability to pass off the move like Chris Webber did, but really good passer. That high-low stuff, being able to find guys for back cuts, all of that stuff was amazing. Just ultimately not enough longevity, and I don't think he peaked high enough to where I could put him on my list. But once again, my number 10 is the only name on the list that I'm not sold on. I could be spoken into moving him off the list for a guy like Chris Webber. But we are now at number 10. We are now into the top 10 for anyone who has missed the first part of the show where we spoke through the guys who didn't quite make the list. In 19th place, we had Scotty Barnes. In 18th place, we had Bobby Jones. Joint 16th place, we had Rasheed Wallace and Amar'e Stoudemire. Joint 14th place, we had Chris Bosh and Dennis Rodman. In 13th place, we had Draymond Green. In 12th place, we had Chris Webber. And in 11th place, we had Pau Gasol. Okay, we are now into the top 10. I can say all of the 10 names are the guys who were on my list. I can say that. So all 10 of these guys were guys who were...
For me too?
Yes, I believe it's the same for you as well. So all 10 of these guys are guys that me and Lo had on our list.
You was reaching, huh? Just like me, huh? We both reaching for... we both
Hey, shout out to him. He's actually not number 10. And number 10 is someone who did play in the 70s, early 80s. I had him at 10. He had 26 points. So 15 more points than Pau Gasol. So there was a big jump, more than double Pau Gasol's points. So this 10 was quite close to consensus. I had him in 10. John D, you had him in 10. Lo, you had him in 9. Chill had him in 9. Ox had him in 8. Pirate had him in 7. Gifted had him at 9. Riv had him at 10. And Sean had him at 7. We are, of course, talking about Elvin Hayes. I'm going to start with you, Lo, because you had him at 9. Go ahead and break down Elvin Hayes' game for me.
Nasty work. Hey, well, I can't say the other name I had on there. But Hayes and the last name were the two names I was pretty close to taking off. The only reason why I was pretty high on Hayes is just because some of those years when the Bullets went on runs where it seems as if even though some awards were given to someone else, it does seem as if like he was potentially the best player on that team, at least from a scoring perspective, while also from some reports being a solid defender as well. A lot of that scoring value kind of carried over from regular season to post. Not enough longevity to get me off of my pivot on hearing out Chris Webber and Pau, but it was really just Elvin Hayes from a scoring perspective seemed as if like he was potentially the best player on those teams and not his front court running mate that would end games with 15 or 13 points. I don't know how he was what's his name? So I don't know how he was getting some awards back in the day, but it is what it is. So that's what kind of sold me is that I would kind of go back and I would look and it's like, wow, there's a lot of that value is being sustained, even in series where it probably should not have. But shout out to Elvin Hayes though.
Yeah, Elvin Hayes was my number 10. He's the guy who I'm contemplating just removing off my list. Really good defender, really good rim protector. Maybe should have been the 78 Finals MVP. The guy who won it probably should have been third, considering Bob Dandridge was hooping as well. The offensive stuff just throws me off a little bit because he was skilled. He can make mid-range jump shots, a lot of mid-range jump shots. He's one of the most inefficient volume scorers of the era. That is what it is. He's one of the most inefficient volume scorers of the era. That holds me back a little bit. He's not the greatest in terms of decision making. He's quite turnover prone. So offensively, it's a lot of stuff that I typically don't like. I'm not a huge fan of the shot diet, the shot selection, the turnovers, the lack of decision making and playmaking. But the defense was really, really, really good. Do I think he should have been the 78 Finals MVP? I don't think it should have been Wes Unseld. I'll say that. Interestingly enough, if you go back and watch the 78 Finals, just the final game, you'll hear on the broadcast, they announced Bob Dandridge is going to be the Finals MVP. And then he wasn't. So, shout out to Wes Unseld, but that's a different story for a different day. But yeah, Elvin Hayes, the reason I'm hesitant is just he doesn't have the greatest longevity, and then all of the offensive shortcomings that I'm acknowledging. I could see the avenue for me having Chris Webber or Pau Gasol above him, but still a really gifted offensive player, someone who could score, someone who was an amazing rim protector, and that's probably his biggest value. His defense is rim protection, but that 10 spot was tough for me. It was a toss up for me. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about Elvin Hayes. John D, is there anything you want to say about Mr. Elvin Hayes?
I do think you hit the nail on the head. Really good mid-range shooter, good defender, really good rebounder. I think he led the league in rebounds 2 to 3 times. But yeah, I do second guess, like, should I have Weber over him, just because I do think Weber is a better scorer and passer, but then Elvin Hayes is the better defender. I just leaned on defense on that side, so that's where I had Elvin Hayes. I'm gonna keep him there though.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to the rebound, and that's something I should have brought up. Elvin Hayes he's a weird player. Another thing is, like, and this doesn't play a part into my rankings. This is just Elvin Hayes lore, I guess. People didn't like him.
Really?
Like, people just didn't like him. Whether that's people in the league, announcers, people around basketball. He was just not a very well-liked person. You guys can do your own research on why people didn't like him. That's not my place to gossip. I do think that might have played a part into his lack of a finals MVP in 78, but people did not like him. So shout out to Elvin Hayes, or not. Yeah, you guys can do your research and determine whether or not he deserves a shout out. But yeah, Elvin Hayes did come in 10th place with 26 points. In 9th place with 31 points, so 5 more points. Oh wait, hold on. Teddy Hart. Did I miss Bob McAdoo? I'm assuming most people viewed him as a center. That's what I'm going to assume.
Yeah, I didn't.
But
know.
Yeah, Bob McAdoo got no votes. Okay, 9th place, 31 points, so 5 more points than Mr. Elvin Hayes. I had him in 8th. John D did not have him. Lowe had him in 8th. Tyler had him in 8th. Chill had him in 7th. Gifted had him in 10th. KB had him in 6th. Riv had him in 7th. Carson had him in 8th. Swiper had him in 8th. And Sean had him in 9th. I would have loved to have KB on here to explain to me why he has him in 6th. We are talking about the superstar of the post-shot clock world. Bob Pettit.
Now we get to hoops now.
Yeah, so I'm gonna start on Mr. Bob Pettit. I think the elephant in the room is, if you guys can find some Bob Pettit footage, shout out to you, man. There is not much footage going around. I did kind of go against my philosophy of not ranking things I haven't really seen with Bob Pettit, because all I've seen is like one half of basketball, like 5 years ago. So maybe I shouldn't be ranking him. But from what I have seen, amazing offensive rebounder. Really, really good offensive rebounder. And a 4 who could shoot the ball at a really high level. Stretch 4, I guess, is what he's not a stretch 4 because he was like creating his own shot, but someone who could make jump shots at a high clip. Obviously, he was shooting low 40s from the field, but that's because era differences. We understand that. Wasn't the greatest defender from my limited resources. Wasn't the greatest defender, but amazing offensive player, really good utility, got to the free throw line, could knock down outside shots, really good offensive rebounder. All of that stuff was like, plus he beat the Celtics in the finals, 50 points game 7. But yeah, I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. Based on everything I've ever said, I probably shouldn't have Bob Pettit on the list. I'm gonna just be honest. I probably shouldn't have him on the list. I haven't seen much. I'm not gonna pretend like I have. So I'm gonna keep a spade. I have him at 8, quite frankly, out of respect for what he did. I haven't seen much of him. I can tell you a little bits here and there about his game, but there's not a whole lot for me to go off of. I watched one half of basketball during COVID. I don't even know if that game's still on the internet. So that's all I have to really say about Bob Pettit.
Quick question. Why do you think that those Hawks teams' defenses were always at the top of the league at the time? If you don't think he was that good of a defender, who do you think on that team? Because of course we can't watch, so I don't know who else to attribute some of that defensive presence to.
From my very limited knowledge, they ended up getting, what's his name? Lovelet, I believe is his name, Clyde Lovelet. He was a 5-man, so I'm going to give him some credit. And also Cliff Hagan, someone who, once again, from my limited film, the one half I watched, Cliff Hagan was hooping. So I'm going to give them 2 credit. Once again, don't know too much, but Clyde Lovelet and Cliff Hagan, those are the guys I'm going to give some credit to. But from once again, I keep saying it because I want to make sure no one is taking my word on Bob Pettit as law. From my limited resources, my limited knowledge, Bob Pettit didn't appear to be the greatest defender. didn't offer much rim protection in that one half I watched. On the outside, didn't have the most mobility and able to contain ball handlers. Probably got a bit too gambly on the outside, trying to rip people and stuff and then getting beat off the dribble. Wasn't the greatest defensive rebounder from what I watched in that one half of basketball. Maybe he was just being lazy on that half. I don't know. So all of that stuff, I just don't think he was the greatest defender. But I might be way off, and maybe he just had a game where he just didn't feel like putting in a lot of effort. So it's tough. It's tough to evaluate. But yeah, that's going to be my reasonings. But I'm going to be honest. I probably should have just taken Bob Pettit off the list and put Chris Webber at 10. It's probably what I should have done. But anyway, shout out to Bob Pettit. Is there anything you guys want to say about Bob Pettit? Because I've been trying to ramble and say stuff.
No, the defensive side, I don't know, because even before Love left, there's like a year or two where they're still like second in defense, and obviously the best team in defense is Bill Russell and them. So I just don't know who else to attribute it to. Like, he's one of the most consistent big men that are there, and at that time in basketball, like having a big presence inside, just being a bigger body, you're going to like dictate what's going on defensively. So I just genuinely don't know who else to even attribute it. So even before Love left, they were like still second in defense, and obviously no one's going to be better than Bill Russell. So you're right. I am doing a lot of assuming as well. I'm assuming that he was a really good to solid defender, a solid to really good defender. I get a bit advanced. I give a lot of credit to a lot of players at that point in time who could jump shot shoot with the best of them. The reason because I do believe the further away you can get from the basket and still generate some points, the better off you are. Because again, there was a lot of teams that were just naively driving into the basket, constantly trying to attack the basket against Bill Russell, Mike, and I would assume Bob Pettit, Wilt Chamberlain. And I think that was a huge reason why a team like the Lakers and even Pettit at times had a lot of success against the Celtics, is because they were a bit more ability to rely on jump shot shooting, and Bob Pettit had a lot to do with that. And so I think those are the two biggest reasons why. But again, it's a lot of, I'm giving a lot of grace to things I did not see from players that is really hard to kind of gauge. But I'm also just giving a lot of credit because, like you said, even though there were other big men there, they were still pretty consistently at the top of the league defensively after Russell and them.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Shout out to John D, man. He stayed on principle. He ain't put someone on the list he ain't watched. We frauds. I don't know to tell you. Yeah, you're muted, but we're frauds. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say.
I have not watched a dribble of Bob Pettit. I'm not,
and that's respectable. And that's very respectable.
That's respect. Respect.
I even tried to scroll through and see if I could find a little something. All I see is
it doesn't exist. The 62 All-Star game, is that what it is?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. That's the only thing that you're gonna find these days. I'm trying to tell you. So yeah, chat. Take this one with a grain of salt. I probably shouldn't have put him on the list. He still would have made it if he didn't have my vote. He would have still been slightly above Elvin Hayes. But yeah, I apologize for going back on my principles for Bob Pettit of all people. My bad. Anyway, number 8. This is a guy. Is this the first guy who makes every list? He might be. Dream let us down. He made every list except one. So there is a big jump. 49 points. So major jump from the 31 that Bob Pettit had. I had this guy in 9th. John D, you had him in 8th. Low, you had him in 10th. ZZ had him in 8th. Tyler had him in 9th. Chill had him in 8th. Real Talk had him in 8th. Ox had him in 6th. Ron had him in 7th. KB had him in 8. Pirate had him at 10. Gifted had him at 8. Penn had him at 7. Riff had him at 9. Carson had him at 9. Swiper had him at 7. Jordan had him at 8. And Sean had him at 10. We are, of course, talking about one of the Boston Celtics from the 80s. Someone who I know Low uses to disparage Larry Bird's career.
Let's get to it, man.
So I'm gonna start with you. Talk to me about Kevin Mchale. Talk to me about your number 10.
I'm gonna keep it a being with you. If we're going off peaks, he definitely would have been higher for me. I think at his absolute best, he is, genuinely speaking, one of the more impressive ball players on this list. Impeccable post scorer, gets where he needs to, seals properly. Terrible vision though. Like we're not expecting no passes out of Mchale. but really had a knack for angles, really had a knack for leveraging his body a certain type of way to kind of just get advantages pretty consistently. And in all honesty, it really didn't matter who he was doing this against. He did it pretty consistently throughout his career, regardless if he was younger. Of course, when he got a little older, at his absolute best, and he has series where he is outscoring Larry Bird, and he's doing it at a very efficient clip. Speaking of efficiency, one of the most efficient volume scorers the league has ever seen, ever. And then defensively, I always question some of those forwards back in the day on the defensive side of the floor, but I do think Mchale is on the other side of the spectrum of being a really, really good defender as well in terms of passing lanes, kind of rotating accordingly, kind of filling things up, especially down low when teams are kind of mucking things up. The only thing that really, really, really held me back from Mchale being higher is just longevity. It's a blip in the 80s where he was. I genuinely believe he was a dominant force. He was a genuine dominant force on both sides of the floor, and it was just a blip of time. It didn't last long enough for me to take him over a lot of other names. But if we talking about peaks, he is like one of the more underrated peaks at the power forward position, without a doubt.
Yeah, some of the best post footwork I've ever seen. The touch around the rim was fantastic. He was pretty disciplined as a rim protector, solid rebounder. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head as we said, like, he only had like 12 years, maybe 12 or 13 years in the NBA. And I'm getting to a point in my list where, guys are starting to have like substantial years outside of maybe a few. But yeah, the longevity just really stopped me from having him any higher.
Yeah, I want to say in the post-prime Kareem, pre-prime Hakeem era, he's the best post scorer in the league. I'm pretty sure. Amazing footwork. I want to also go back and watch a Boston Celtics game from that era. Kevin Mchale has the longest arms I've ever seen.
Yeah, he
I don't know. I don't know what his wingspan is, but he wingspan to height ratio is ridiculous on Kevin Mchale. He looks like Spider-Man. I don't know how to explain it. His arms are ridiculous. His arms ridiculously long, allowed him to get to some finishing angles that people just couldn't get to. Amazing footwork, like John D said. Led the league in field goal percentage a couple times, I think. The issue is post 87, once he had that foot injury, you do start to see a decline. He started his career coming off the bench, was a really good bench player. But compared to the rest of the list, just we get some years post prime or post foot injury, and then pre getting into the starting lineup. It's hard to climb higher up the list. I think I had Kevin Mchale about as high as I could get. Well, take Bob Pettit off the list. He now goes up to 8. So 8 is about as high as I could get Kevin Mchale. Amazing post scorer, lacked in the playmaking department. Shout out to Larry Bird for being able to make it work with guys who weren't exactly outside shooters in that era. But amazing post scorer, really good defender. I could argue he was the best scorer on that team.
I'm not as high on Larry Bird scoring, so
neither am I. I'm not that high on that brother's scoring.
I could absolutely, and I'm not saying he is, but I could absolutely. No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I could make the argument he was the best scorer on that team. That's what I'm saying.
Last week we were talking about KD and Larry Bird, and it just seemed like we were shitting on Larry Bird the entire time. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
Bro,
that video will be uploaded tomorrow.
Let me not get into it, man. All I know is anytime they needed a bucket in some of those postseason runs, they just threw the ball to Mchale and he gave it to them every single time. It's actually, like, all Larry Bird slander aside, it is actually very impressive how often they just gave him the ball and he just immediately giving them 2 points. It's actually pretty crazy.
Yeah, definitely. I can say with confidence, he's definitely their best dump it into him and go get a bucket scorer. Definitely the best of that. Now, all the other stuff, the off-ball stuff, then sure. The shooting, yeah. But in terms of we need a bucket, who we giving the ball to, that was Kevin Mchale. His efficiency was ridiculous in the postseason. We're looking at years where he's +9, +10 relative true shooting in the postseason. One of the most efficient postseason scorers ever with a heavy isolation diet. That's a tough thing to do. We're talking like Adrian Dantley is doing stuff like that. And Kevin Mchale is doing it in a winning situation while being an amazing defender. So Kevin Mchale was a really good player. Like, he was a top 10 player in the world.
What, in 86, 87?
Just the mid 80s, the 85, 86, 87, 88-ish. He was a top 10 player in the league. Just an amazing player. I implore anyone to go back and watch the Boston Celtics of that era, not just for Larry Bird, but for Kevin Mchale. Watching what he was doing with the lack of spacing when guys like Dennis Johnson are just being actively ignored on the outside, his ability to just make tough finishes look routine, get guys jumping on up face, get to the free throw line. Wasn't much Kevin Mchale couldn't do. Wasn't outside of pass. Shout out to his nickname, Black Hole.
He wasn't.
Shout out to Kevin Mchale. Anyway, on to number 7. There is a 20-point jump here from 49 points to 69 points. So, once again, this is not someone who was on every list. I believe they were on every list except one. Yes, they were on every list except one. I had this guy at 6. John D, you had this guy at 6. Lo, you had him at 7. ZZ had him at 9. Tyler had him at 7. Chill did not have him.
Oh,
Real Talk had him at 5. Ox had him at 10. Ron had him at 9. Oh, KB had him at 5. Pirate had him at 8. Gifted had him at 6. Penn had him at 6. Riv had him at 8. Carson had him at 7. Dream had him at 5. Swiper had him at 10. Jordan had him at 7. And Sean had him at 8.
We're
so
now
everyone except Chill.
Chill, we can't. We're gonna have to have this conversation. I didn't think Chill was gonna be the name. The name not to have him on the list is kind of crazy, actually.
Yeah, we are of course talking about Anthony Davis. Chill was the only one who did not have him. It is what it is. Enough on that. Let's talk about the guys who did have him. Myself, John D, and you. John D, you had him the highest. Well, me and you, but John D, talk to me about Anthony Davis.
Anthony Davis, man. Where do I begin? Played amazing years with my Los Angeles Lakers team. You know, he was one of the best defenders, if not the best defender in the league. Extremely versatile, playing in space. I remember in that 2023 run, people were saying he was inconsistent, even though he was undoubtedly the best defender in the league, in my opinion. The way he was able to take away the rim in the Warrior series and in the Grizzly series. The play finishing, how in 2020 he just got to a level that I thought I would never see from him. The shooting ability in 2020, the scoring that he put out in 2020, the play finishing, being one of the best lob catchers in the league. When we talk about guys like Blake Griffin in his prime athletic days, we talk about guys like Zion Williamson when he's healthy, Giannis when he's healthy. Anthony Davis is right in that conversation, and to be one of the best defenders in the league as a drop defender, as a defender in space, as a pick and roll defender, as a rim protector, as somebody that can play passing lanes. Anthony Davis is phenomenal. He's phenomenal. And I had to have him on this list. I just couldn't get him into my top 5. I couldn't. But
yeah, that's
2020
is tough to crack.
Yeah. But 2020 Anthony Davis. Yeah, literally. Like that top 5, you can put the names. The order was a little tough after 1 and 2, in my opinion, but even 1 and 2 was tough, but we knew who 1 and 2 was. But yeah, Anthony Davis was fantastic.
You're gonna find out if we knew who 1 and 2 was anyway. But yeah, AD for me was number 6. Couldn't quite get him into the top 5. I had him over my number 7, obviously. The two-way dominance, the years he's put it together now. We are looking at someone who came into the league, one of the better defenders in the league right away. By year 2, year 3, he's turned himself into one of the better offensive bigs in the NBA. One of the all-time play finishers, someone who has a face-up game, amazing touch around the rim, really good as a pick-and-roll threat, can give you the pick-and-pop stuff. Younger AD with an amazing handle for a big man, someone who could grab the ball off the glass and go, someone who could face you up, 1-2 dribble, get to a spot, rise up, all of that amazing stuff. And then defensively, one of the most versatile defenders at the 4 we've ever seen. Not just versatile in terms of switchability, versatile in terms of what schemes you can deploy him in, whether that is him in matchups, in pick and roll, whether he's playing drop, he's switching, he's hedging, whether you have him as a roamer. Whatever you need from Anthony Davis, he can do it at an extremely high level. The 23 playoffs is like, I guess, the epitome of that in that postseason run, where the Memphis series is just all-time dominance on defense. And then the Warriors series is another all-time dominant series, but in a completely different way to the Memphis series. Just being able to show that flexibility while being one of the more gifted offensive players we've ever seen. Plus the longevity he's put together now. We are looking at 10 plus years of AD being at a really high level with two-way dominance. That was enough for me to outweigh my number 7. But low, it wasn't enough to outweigh that same guy for you. So what gave you some hesitation on Anthony Davis, if anything, or you just higher on the other guy without saying his name, obviously?
Yeah, well, I guess since y'all gave AD his praise, I guess to say the negative with AD is, as a Laker fan, there is a clear ceiling of who he is offensively, in contrast to a lot of other players. His ability to like create consistently isn't there. The shot will kind of go in and out. The epitome of a play finisher. Like, you throw a lob, you put him in a position, you dump off. He's definitely has a really good knack for finishing around the rim. But it kind of took him a while to kind of get to the point of the shot creating being there. And then even when the shot creation is there, the passing out of double teams and playmaking, or at least capitalizing off his playmaking ability, that's something that developed over time within his years in LA. But that's something that he had to develop. That's not something that he had early on. I think that's probably the two biggest gripes with me with AD. But I agree with you, and I'm happy you kind of really honed into what versatility means. Not just the ability to kind of go out there and switch, but employ AD in different defensive schemes, and for them to all be really like, for him to execute on them to a T. It's not just drop coverage. It's not just switching. It's not just roaming. It's not just post defense. It's like literally anything you would need out of someone at that height and size, he does at an elite level. And there's only, I think with some players we tend to embellish who they used to be defensively in certain aspects. Some that are higher up. I think AD is on the other side of the spectrum where not enough people give respect to who he is, and I think he's done this while being on teams that haven't necessarily given him all of the tools defensively. So I genuinely think he's one of the better defensive players of all time, not just as a power forward, but for me, the offensive limitations that I've seen out of him. Not that aggressive of a post presence. He doesn't seal properly, in my opinion. He's also just not the greatest consistent creator on his own. And then even when he started to develop that a little bit more and be a bit more aggressive, he had to also develop like the passing and playmaking that came along with it. But I also agree with you, Mars. Underrated longevity. We're kind of getting to the point now where even with some of the years where he is dealing with injuries, he's still piecing together other years surrounding those years to where we're getting to a decade plus time frame where it's pretty impressive. And I can't wait to what he looks like next year, because where he left off with the Lakers in terms of his offensive game, if he's able to carry a lot of that over to Dallas, I think that we might actually genuinely get the best version of AD, while also playing with a lot of more athletes on the perimeter surrounding him. So I actually think potentially next year is his best year yet in his career.
Ooh, yeah, just to
that's exciting. Go ahead.
Just to piggyback on that, yeah, I think AD is going to be a big reason why the Dallas Mavericks are one of the best defenses in the league. The offense is going to be bad, in my opinion, but especially before Kyrie gets back. But that defense is going to be special. You can put a lot of size around Anthony Davis. You got Gafford, Lively, PJ, Najee. If Cooper Flag can be what everybody thinks he can be defensively, especially in his rookie year, I don't know if you would want to bank on that as much. But they just have the defensive personnel with Max Christie. If Victor Wembanyama didn't exist, I would really consider Anthony Davis for like a defensive player of the year type of season. But it's like, I think it's like the Luka thing. I would pencil in Wemby to be a defensive player of the year until he gets it. But yeah, I think AD is going to have a great season.
I don't know if anyone else has ever done this, but Anthony Davis was 25 points per 75 on plus 10 relative true shooting in every series going to the finals in 2020. I don't know if anyone's
is like
I don't know if anyone's ever done that before. All 4 series, 25 minimum on plus 10. That's
insane.
2020 is the run where it's like, if this is the best version of AD, that's a tough motherfucker, bro. That's it. He's really up there. If that is truly the best version. But unfortunately, that version you just don't get enough. And to be fair, I also think that that's more of an anomaly. You start fucking shooting middies like he's Dirk. Like, that shit was just ridiculous.
Yeah, he was pulling.
For what it's worth, he does have 6 series in his career plus 10 relative true shooting.
Let's stop.
He does. I mean, I'm talking 2018 against Portland, 31 on plus 11.
Yeah, that was a series too.
25 on plus 11 against Denver in 2024. Stat pattern, but hey.
28
on plus 9 against the Warriors in 2015.
Some of those series though, he's not. His shooting isn't like, for example, that Rocket series in 2020.
There's a direct correlation between his mid-range numbers.
Yeah, his true shooting is because he just beating up PJ Tucker in the paint like consistently. That's the reason why his true shooting is high.
You gotta be able to punish mismatches. Like,
no, I agree with you. But that shooting that he did in that run was on Dirk level, and I don't think that's really who he is.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I just think the highs of AD in the playoffs it's hard to overlook, but there is also a very direct correlation between AD's mid-range numbers in series and then his efficiency. Direct correlation. I'm not saying that's a problem or anything. It's just if AD's mid-range isn't falling, you're probably in for a lower efficiency or inefficient series. If it is falling, you're probably in for a historic series. There's not much in terms of the medium there. And that's, I guess, one of the concerns with Anthony Davis. But anyway, on to number 6. This guy was, I think, quite comfortably ahead of AD. Yes, he was. 93 points. So we are looking at 24 points above Anthony Davis. And I think this is officially the first person on every single list. Yes, I think it is. I had him at 7, so 1 spot behind AD. John D had him 1 spot behind AD. Low, you had him 1 spot above AD. ZZ had him at 6. Tyler had him at 5. Chill had him at 6. Real Talk had him at 7. Ox had him at 9. Ron had him at 6. KB had him at 7. Pirate had him at 5. Gifted had him at 7. Penn had him at 5. Riv had him at 6. Carson had him at 5. Dream had him at 6. Swiper and Jordan had him at 5. And Sean had him at 6. So very consistent placements outside of Ox, who had him at 9. We are, of course, talking about Charles Barkley. You did have Charles Barkley above Anthony Davis, Low. So talk to me about Charles Barkley and why he's the 6th greatest power forward of all time.
I'm gonna say this before I continue. I don't know what Chill is smoking. I just looked at the list again. There are 7 definitive names, and not to have AD on there is ridiculous. But Barkley, one of the more impressive offensive players on the list. Some of the highest relative true shooting we have ever seen. Actually, before Curry came along, was the highest relative true shooting. Him and Mchale would go back and forth on that list. Some of those scoring seasons are very, very impressive. Really great feel for around the rim. Great rebounder as well. Extremely good transition player. Also in the conversation is one of the better passers at the power forward position as well. I do think Pau and Webber are just better passers, but a very underrated passer. And all of that isn't translating into the postseason. The only reason why I had him over AD is just because I think that not only the availability, but the consistency with who he is as a player was shown a little bit more from AD, from Barkley. But to also be fair, Barkley has some years where he's not available and healthy, so that kind of hurt him as well. And then probably the biggest knock against Barkley is that outside of probably Stoudemire, he is probably the worst defender that has been mentioned so far in today's stream. Like he is really, really, really bad defensively. Some of those years in the 80s when he was with the Sixers, he's still athletically enough to kind of get the job done with some weak side help and roaming around. But who Barkley was as a defender is really, 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 really bad. But as an offensive weapon, throwing him the ball, creating for himself, undersized, really great passer, finisher, just the ultimate offensive weapon at the 4 spot. It's really hard for me to kind of move away from that, especially when his highs are really, really, really high. I will also say this. Illegal defense back then really had a lot of these people fooled because they would go into the postseason and then like new defensive schemes would be just thrown at them and they just did not know how to respond. Barkley definitely fell victim to that pretty often. If once like he would beat up on the Blazers and then he would go against like the Seattle Supersonics or the Houston Rockets who knew how to like navigate around those type of illegal defensive schemes, and that's where the drops and the struggles would tend to occur. And obviously against the Bulls, but Barkley's really, really impressive though. Great athlete.
Yeah, just for reference, Barkley has I think this is a 5-season stretch where he's 27 per 75 adjusted for error on plus 12.7 efficiency, followed by 24.5 on plus 11.6, followed by 24.5 on plus 12.4, followed by 28.4 on plus 10.1. That is one of the most efficient scoring stretches of all time, while maintaining a lot of that efficiency in the postseason during that era as well. The way he was able to do it is probably one of the worst brands of basketball to watch, but he did it nonetheless. Excellent at using his body. He wasn't the biggest in terms of height, but able to carve out opportunities for himself, just bullying people out of the way, finding finishing angles, all of that stuff. A benefactor of the fact that you could just back people down for 28 seconds on a 24-second possession. But once again, this is all relative to error. So Barkley using that to his advantage and getting the rules changed is actually a testament to his dominance. Someone who is a really gifted passer, but lacked in terms of the decision making from time to time, could be a bit turnover prone. The handle wasn't the most functional. The reason I favored AD quite simply is that Barkley was horrific on defense. That was the separator for me. I do think he peaked in Philly. I don't know if that's a controversial opinion. I think he was better in Philly than he was in Phoenix, but he obviously went to the finals and won an MVP in Phoenix. So it's like, oh, that's peak Barkley. I think he probably peaked in like 90, 91, that era. But really, really good offensive player. Not too many threes for a guy of his shooting ability. So a lot of my issues with Barkley are just decision-making based, whether that's passing decisions, whether that's dribbling into a crowd, whether that's just not focused on a defensive play, losing guys backdoor, losing guys off a screen, gambling on defense, not making a rotation. Like a lot of Barkley's issues just seem to be mental errors to me. But in terms of just his ability with the ball in his hands, there wasn't much he couldn't do in terms of just being the focal point of an offense, especially in that era where you could really, especially during the regular season, just give him the ball and then have 4 players above the free throw line and give Charles Barkley a whole isolation. You're going to see that quite a few times.
Nasty,
if you go back and watch the Charles
hoops,
Barkley games.
Man. Nasty hoops, dog.
Shout out to Charles
that
Barkley.
Portland series is fucking disgusting, dog. There's one of them series. It is shameless basketball. They just sitting there just isoing him. I'm like, God damn, bro.
Yeah, so if you don't want to watch a team play the exact same every time down the floor, like apparently they do in this game, maybe you don't want to watch a whole lot of Charles Barkley hoops. But who cares? I also think like in that series, I'm pretty sure Charles Barkley averaged like 30 something. So I mean, it worked.
Oh no, fucking hooping. He was balling out his time. It's just shameless. It's shameless basketball, dog.
And then the next series, he saw a real defense and blew 3-1 leads. But that's neither here nor there.
No, that's his whole career. Not gonna hold you. That's his career, dog.
And then joined that team a couple years later. But no one would ever do that. But yeah, Charles Barkley, amazing offensive centerpiece. Consistently, I think part of some of the best offenses in the league in Phoenix and Philly. But defensively, at a position in that era where you needed your front court to be good defensively, he was just bleeding way too much value, in my opinion. I do think the playoff stuff could get concerning from time to time, depending on defenses, because of a lack of versatility offensively. So all of that stuff, I think, just led to me favoring AD slightly. But Charles Barkley was my number 7. Is there anything you want to say about Charles Barkley, John D?
I do agree with him peaking in Philly. I think it would be from like 89 to 91. I think he was fantastic in transition. I think he was really good downhill. I think he was a really good finisher. Throughout those 3 years I just mentioned, he did lead the league in inside the arc percentage in accuracy, and I also think he led in true shooting as well. This is like high 60s on that shot diet. He can knock down mid ranges occasionally. I wouldn't say he was like the most potent mid range shooter, but I think this is in the same mold of guys who are able to provide spacing that can shoot, guys that can get downhill with such force that you kind of want to get a body in front of that before they build that head of steam, because it's really hard to like contest that. Like when Zion's getting ahead downhill, or Giannis or LeBron, you want to put a body in front of that before they can really build that momentum. And I think Charles Barkley fit in that category. I do agree with you guys. He was just not the level defensively for me to consider him above Anthony Davis for me. But offensively, I do think Charles Barkley does start to get underrated just because of, I don't know, players on TV get underrated unless you're like Shaq. But Charles Barkley got underrated. I think who else? Paul Pierce gets underrated because of all the stuff he says. Like,
Loki,
I don't understand that.
Kenny Smith is underrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we seen the dunk Chill describes. How many guards doing that?
All right, you're not.
How many guards doing that? You know what I'm saying? Between the legs off the backboard.
Kenny has a few games where he's just outright outplaying John Stockton, but we won't get into that too much, man.
Kenny Smith was player of the week one time in like 91.
Kenny should have been player of the week in that series in 90. I think it's 94. He was outplaying John Stockton. It's actually pretty disgusting. John Stockton's defense was terrible in that series, but I digress.
Yeah, random John Stockton stray. But yeah, Charles Barkley did ultimately come in 6th place. Before we get into the top 5, we do have a super chat from Teddy Hart. He said, USA Sports on DVD website is the best database to rent/borrow full NBA games from eras past. This is what Tom Haberstroh used to find those random MJ games from 88 when they were cooking the book. Shout out to Tom Haberstroh. He's on the Blazers broadcast. Love watching Blazers games.
Put that back real quick. Put that back.
There you go. USA Sports on DVD.
Stars being given up around here, man. Hold on.
Because bro, all I use is YouTube.
No, there's a whole site.
Shout out to the plug on YouTube.
There's a site where you can buy games. Yeah.
Wow.
Now some of these games are a bit pricey now, and they still have wiped all the database of Bird's games in the finals when he scored 8 points. All that shit is just wiped. It's almost as if
you can find them games on YouTube. You can find them on YouTube. I watched one.
You can find the games where he scored 8 points.
Yeah, game 3 and game 4.
Oh man, you gotta link me that shit. They must have just put that up. I remember when I was looking for that shit. I was like, damn, they wiped everything.
Because I was just in a passionate debate about who played better in the finals between 2012 KD and 1981 Larry Bird. You can find.
Oh my god, people don't. Yeah.
Let me find it. I'll find it and I'll send it in a private chat. Bear with me. I'm actually looking for it right now.
I'm looking at this website.
Yeah, so sorry guys. I'm working.
If that's the same website, I think it is. Some of those prices are a bit steep. I can't hold you.
Guys, super chats. I'm trolling. Okay, anyway, the top 5. So for anyone who's just joined us, we had 19 names in total. One of them was Scotty Barnes. So we had 18 serious names. 19th place was Scotty Barnes with 1 point. Bobby Jones was 18th place with 2 points. Rasheed Wallace and Amar'e Stoudemire came tied in 16th place with 3 points. Chris Bosh and Dennis Rodman came joint 14th place with 4 points. Draymond Green came 13th place with 5 points. Chris Webber came 12th place with 8 points. And Pau Gasol came 11th place with 11 points. Okay. And then to the top 10, Elvin Hayes came in 10th with 26 points. Bob Pettit came in 9th with 31 points. Kevin Mchale came in 8th with 49 points. Anthony Davis came in 7th with 69 points. Nice. And Charles Barkley came in 6th place with 93 points. Okay. Into number 5. This guy had 120 points and was only 6 points off coming in 4th place. Now, I'm going to be very honest. The reason he is not in 4th place is solely because some people actively chose to not put him on the list for reasons outside of basketball.
Okay.
Which I have no problem with. But I'm just letting everyone know. In fact, if everyone put him on the list, he likely would have came 3rd. Likely. But he's in 5th place. This is someone who I put in 3rd place. John D, you put him in 3rd place. Low, you put him in 4th place. ZZ, put him in 2nd place. Tyler, put him in 4th place. Chill, put him in 2nd place. Real Talk, put him in 4th place. Ox, put him in 3rd place. Ron, put him in 3rd place. KB decided to be an activist and did not rank him. Pirate, put him in 3rd place. Gifted, put him in 3rd place. Penn decided to be an activist and decided not to rank him. Riv, put him in 4th place. Carson just chose to put him in 6th place. Shout out to Carson. Dream decided to be an activist and did not rank him. Swiper put him in 6th place. Jordan put him in 3rd place. And Sean put him in 3rd place. Lo, you had a reaction when you found out that me and John D put him in 3rd place.
Yeah, 3rd place is crazy. Also, if you made the list top 13, he might have made it, but who knows?
John D, go ahead and sing his praises since you had him in 3rd place. Sing his praises.
Yeah, please sing this nigga's praises.
Go ahead. Sing his praises, John D.
Sing him.
I was fine with just letting us he's here. Let's just move past. I'm gonna keep this very short then. The longevity is really good. One of the better regular season scorers of his era. He did fall in the playoffs a few times just with his reliance on a jump shot. And the shot selection and mid range I didn't necessarily love. The longevity is what really pushes me over. I could be convinced that my 4 and 5 could be ahead of him. I definitely can be convinced. And there we go. Karl Malone. That guy.
Lo, I just sent the link to the A1 finals in the private chat if you want to look at that after the show or whatever. The reason I have him in third, quite frankly, is longevity. Just put together a whole lot of high level years. I seen you on Twitter say him and his point guard are the biggest underachievers or whatever.
Yeah, we gonna get to that soon because I'm
for sure. No, for sure. I mean, I'm never gonna be here defending anything. Like if you don't even need to make a compelling case. You just need to say he sucks, and I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, I can move him down. But he was a really good defender for a large part of his career. Offensively, really good face-up game, mid-range game, really viable post scorer. Did it in a different way to Charles Barkley. Because he lacked a lot of explosion in traffic, so he was just trying to create angles to get to finishing spots, which could dent his efficiency in postseason situations because he didn't have that same level of explosive athleticism to get to the easy ones. So he would often resort to turnarounds, tough floaters and stuff that just wasn't the most efficient offense. His playoff scoring did lag behind a little bit. He became a really good passer, especially in the late 90s as they go away from the John Stockton-centric offense. They start running the offense more through him. Really good passer out the post, really good feel for finding guys on back cuts and all that stuff. But yeah, the biggest case for why I had him at 3 was quite simply longevity. We are looking at someone who is third all time in the NBA in scoring for a reason. It's because he was one of the more consistent scorers and never missed games for a really, really long time. This is someone who I think is like top 5 all time in all NBA selections. And I'm not using that to say accolades or why he's that high. I'm saying he played at a level he was one of the best front court players in the league for nearly a decade and a half. That does hold a lot of weight to me, especially when I factor in not missing games. But I spoke about this with John Stockton. From the moment he entered the league, we've got 81 games, 82, 82, 80, 82, 82, 81, 82, 82, 82, 82, 82, 81, 49 in the lockout season, 82, 81, 80, 81. And then he finally got what he deserved and got hurt in 04. So just a lot of games played, a lot of minutes, a lot of value in terms of just being consistently available. Now, look, tell me why he was too high.
Someone is asking in the chat, so I'm just going to say it. And I'm going to make sure you keep the monetization on the video, so don't worry about it.
Thank you.
He was dealing with someone that he should not have been dealing with because of a certain age, and then became a deadbeat after doing that as well, which is just a double whammy of an asshole. In terms of basketball play, I agree. The only reason why he's even in these conversations is simply because of longevity. To be fair to him, he did play really high-level basketball for a very, very long time. And there is a degree of that's a very impressive thing to do. So I'm not going to sit here and try to downplay that. The reason why I just don't have him that high. Let me just say this as well. Another reason why I favor him more than his running mate in Stockton in that duo of the level of importance is because in the second half of the 90s, they are somehow winning more games despite their roster becoming less talented, and offensively relative on a year-to-year basis, it's getting better despite them having to rely less on Stockton and more on Malone's ability as a playmaker, and he developed as a passer. So just overall, his game is very well-rounded. The reason why I just don't have him as high as some of the other names, and also why he wasn't even on my top 20, is just because that playoff translation is god awful. And I think there is there's too much conversation around 90s basketball players and even early 2000s basketball players that's too Jordan and Kobe centric. So we tend to forget a lot of things that happened before and after the series in which they played Jordan and Kobe. But rewatching a lot of those games, and then also even earlier today, going through some of the articles of what happened during Malone's career, he and Stockton just found different ways to lose playoff games, very winnable playoff series as well. And it's actually mightily impressive how bad they were in very important moments. I agree with Mars, and even what we said before about Barkley. A lot of those players back then overextended themselves and over relied on their ability to just dominate in the legal defensive moments. And then as soon as they faced up against teams that had the ability to match up with them and not allow them to take advantage of it, that's when you start to see the most noteworthy drops. And so there's times where Malone is shooting like 55, 53% from the field in the regular season, and it drops down to like 45, some series 42. It's pretty steep drops, pretty steep drops. And so that's what has him in my top 5, but top 3, I just can't. I just can't. And it'd be one thing if Malone wasn't on teams that weren't good. He was on, genuinely speaking, especially in the late 80s, early 90s. They're on like some of the most talented rosters in the NBA. And it's pretty routine how they just find different ways to lose ball games. It's actually pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think they've lost in the first round more than they've got to the conference finals. Was that?
You want me to go through the whole spiel?
Yeah, go ahead. This is your time.
I wanted to say this. So for y'all don't know, I wanted to be here for the point guard one because I think Stockton, the more I watch Stockton, the more I think that he is more at fault for this than Malone is. But Malone and Stockton, when they played together, more first round exits and conference finals appearances. They have a losing record in the playoffs. I want to say they have three series where they lost, where they were up 2-1. There's several series where they end up losing these games where the score is like in between 2 to 4 points. Even teams that they probably shouldn't be competing with, they somehow are very close in these games, and they still end up losing them. They were one game away from being the first team ever to blow a 3-0 lead against I think it's 92 or 93 Denver Nuggets. It is to watch them when we talk about like DeMar DeRozan and them and how they just found ways to lose, or like Chris Paul finding a way to lose against the Thunder in 2012. But that is like damn near every single year with those two. It's actually impressive how much of a loser they are on and off the court. It's actually kind of crazy.
For what it's worth, number 32 in that game 7 against the Nuggets. He hooped. For what it's worth.
Oh no, he hooped, but the reason why they got that close is because again, once they matched up against a team that had the personnel to like not allow them to get away with that illegal defense stuff with like Mutombo, it just dropped. It's like, oh man, you just can't even there's nothing else you two know. Like that's it. That's all you two know, right? Just sit here stat padding numbers and just throwing the ball into him, and that's all you know, huh? That's all y'all know what to do, huh? All right, cool.
Their offense did become quite predictable, I would say. That's the biggest issue I've had with those Jazz teams, and why I think they lost so often in the playoffs, even as a higher seed. I think someone in the chat said they lost 9 times in the first round, 5 times they were the higher seed. I think it is because just their offense was made for the regular season, but because they exploited the rules of the time, once teams game planned for it and they started finding ways to toe the line of what was and wasn't possible against this team, like in particular, once again, the Houston Rockets. Hakeem was playing illegal defense when he played the Jazz, but they got away with it. And like once that happens, you start seeing this Jazz offense just start to unravel. And I do think more of that is on their point guard than their power forward in terms of who was more to blame for that and who was more reliant on the system. But I do think that does play a big part on why he is a playoff dropper. And I did factor that in terms of where I was ranking him, if I wanted to have him at 3 or 4 or even 5. I did consider him at 5. But just overall, like the guy I have at 4, I think is going to be quite obvious. He's also just been hurt in the playoffs a lot. So like we're just not getting a whole lot of a sample in the playoffs from him. So it's just hard for me to... I think he's a better player. But in terms of overall career, it's just hard for me to like. There's just not enough right now. But I do think a couple years from now, hopefully with a playoff sample. Not saying the lack of playoff sample in terms of series played, because I understand his team right now is not good enough to win. But just in terms of actually being in the playoffs healthy, we're still not seeing that a whole lot. So that's the reason I have him right behind number 32. But once again, you didn't even need to be compelling in order for me to say I'm fine with moving him down. But you was compelling. So credit to you. I know you've rehearsed the slander of these Utah Jazz players.
And it needs to be heard around the world even more, man. It just needs to be heard.
So I'm not even going to say shout out to him. Just that's our number 5. Anyway, number 4. This is a guy who had 6 more points than number 32. So probably would have been 5th if everyone decided not to be an activist. This guy had 126 points. I believe he's on every list. He should be. I had him at 5. John D had him at 5. Lo, you had him at 5. ZZ had him at 4. Tyler had him at 3. Chill had him at 4. Real Talk had him at 6. Ox had him at 4. Ron had him at 5. KB had him at 4. Pirate had him at 6. Gifted had him at 5. Penn had him at 3. Riv had him at 5. Carson and Dream had him at 3. Swiper had him at 4. Jordan had him at 4. And Sean had him at 5. So very consistently being placed in the top 5. Only 2 people had him outside the top 5. We are, of course, talking about Dirk Nowitzki. This is someone who I'm very high on, so I'll start on Dirk. I just think Dirk is one of the best scorers ever. Like the longevity numbers say, I think he's in the 30,000 point club. He's one of the most efficient scorers ever, especially once he gets stronger. I'm talking post 07. 07, I think, was a big point of his career. Is coming off 3 straight years where he's one of the best players in the regular season by a significant margin. From 05 to 07, you can make the argument that in the regular season, Dirk was a top 3 player on the planet. You could absolutely make that argument. And in 05 and 06, he does translate that play to the postseason for the most part. You obviously see the 06 finals where he struggles. But for the most part, Dirk was a really good playoff performer. I always point people to the 06 series against the San Antonio Spurs, where Dirk Nowitzki is just playing amazing. And that's those Dallas teams had a really fun time. Just go back and watch them. Really entertaining to watch. 07 is a series in which he plays the Golden State Warriors, number 1 seed, 67-15. The Mavericks lose. And a big reason why they lose is because of Dirk Nowitzki's poor play in that series. Something he struggled with in that series in particular was the smaller wings. The same thing that Wemby actually struggles with in the modern NBA. The smaller wings being switched onto him, getting up under him, taking away his quickness advantage and forcing him into uncomfortable positions on the outside. And he struggled a lot to deal with that. It's something Dirk spoke about. And he said that led to the turning point of him not only developing the one-legged fadeaway that became an iconic shot for him, but just becoming stronger and a better overall post player. If you watch young Dirk, he was someone who was more of a face-up big, more of a perimeter-oriented big, shot a lot more threes back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and he really refined his game to become, to that point, the best mid-range scorer in the league, in my opinion. This is someone who was routinely around 50% from mid-range, high volume from mid-range, an elite shot profile, an elite shot arsenal, a bunch of counters, the ability to shoot over the top of people. He was just amazing. And then from 09 to 2011, I believe Dirk Nowitzki has one of the best 3-year stretches of postseason scoring ever. I want to give you guys the numbers so that I'm not lying to you. From 09 to 2011, where are we? Okay. So in 09, Dirk Nowitzki in the postseason was 28 points per 75 on plus 10.5 relative true shooting. He then followed that up in 2010 with 29 points per 75 on plus 12 relative true shooting. He then followed that up in 2011 with the postseason run that everyone knows about, going to the finals, winning the championship against the Miami Heat with 31 points per 75 on plus 8 relative true shooting, including a series against the Oklahoma City Thunder that is one of the most dominant scoring displays I've ever seen. Especially game 1. He had like 40-something, 24 or 24 from the free throw line. Just a masterclass in scoring. He is one of the most damaging offensive players at the power forward position. I'm of the opinion he's the greatest offensive power forward ever. John Cena actually sent a super chat regarding that, and I'm going to get to that in about 5 minutes, so just bear with me. He is, in my opinion, the greatest offensive power forward ever, and it's not because he's this great blend of scoring and playmaking like people tend to do with offensive players. It's like, this guy's a great scorer, this guy's a great scorer, this guy's a better playmaker, the playmaking gap is bigger than the scoring gap, he's a better offensive player. I don't think it's that simple with Dirk, because a lot of his offensive value is tied to the stuff that isn't, I guess, tangible. It's a lot of the value in terms of being a floor spacer at the 4 in that era, taking bigs away from the rim, or then being someone who forces mismatches. And then in the middle of the floor, he's so double team proof because of his ability to shoot over the top of you that he's slanting the defense in ways that not many people can without being a high volume passer or playmaker. In fact, he's probably one of the worst passers on this list. But he's so gifted as a scorer that it just bleeds into all the other facets of his game. And then he was really good for a really long time as well. We're talking like 2001 to like 2012, where Dirk Nowitzki was one of the best offensive players in the league. Now, the reason I couldn't get him higher than 5, is 5 where I had him? Or am I just lying to people? Yes. The reason I couldn't get him higher than 5 is because the defense. Similar to Charles Barkley, just not a very good defender. He was a good defensive rebounder, but lacked foot speed on the outside, lacked real post defense, lacked real rim protection instincts, wasn't going to alter a bunch of shots, wasn't exactly willing to alter a bunch of shots, wasn't going to be early in rotations, more often than not was late on rotations, but also wasn't, in my opinion, a defensive liability. In my opinion, he was a negative, but he wasn't a liability. He could be competent within the scheme, within the right personnel, and he could close possessions for you on the defensive glass, so that was valuable. Offensively, amazing. Longevity, amazing. Postseason performance, especially once he added that strength, amazing. Throughout his career was a bit more up and down. You got series where he's dominating. 0-3 against the Timberwolves, dominates. By the way, Kevin Garnett was not guarding him in that series. I just want to make that abundantly clear. Kevin Garnett did used to get cooked by Dirk Nowitzki. That series, not an instance of it. I just want to make that abundantly clear. That series, he was not guarding him. Just want to let everyone know that. But yeah, series against the Spurs, he was frying. Series against the Suns, he would fry. Series against the Oklahoma City Thunder in 2011, he would fry. So like, one of the best postseason scorers, amazing playoff translation, one of the best offensive players ever. Dirk Nowitzki is my number 5. He's all of our number 5s. Is there anything you guys want to add onto Dirk Nowitzki?
I truly don't know how much you said because I had something to take care of off camera real fast. But I'm sure you brought up the ability to attack smalls better towards the ender part of his career or to the later part of his career, which made him a better playoff player. I mean, early in Dirk's career, he had those post spins, he had the speed and open floor to get downhill and get to the rim consistently. He also had a good enough ball handle to where he wasn't a detriment putting the ball on the floor, and being able to navigate through traffic and use his speed to beat bigs on the perimeter was also very valuable. But then he also adds that part to his game a little bit as we more course through his career a little bit more, to where it's really hard to contest my shot, and I'm also one of the best mid-range shooters in the entire NBA, so that was extremely valuable. His play off the ball was really good as well. The pump fakes and the ability to get to the line almost throughout his entire career, the way he was able to get guys in the air and then bump into them, get to the foul line. He was very creative as a post player as well, really good touch around the rim. Again, it was just the defense. And once again, I agree with you where you said he wasn't a liability, because I do think you could put Dirk in a competent defense and he could thrive. I mean, that 2011 year, they had one of the better defenses in the league, and Dirk was a part of that. I just prefer my number 4. And this, I prefer my number 4.
Lo, anything you want to say?
Not really. I think y'all hit it on the head. I think the one thing that I always try to give emphasis on when it comes to Dirk is that the version in which most people are familiar with him is a Dirk that kind of that was brought out of necessity because of his inability to be strong enough against a lot of smaller guards and stuff like that, because Dirk was such a mismatch problem. Like Mars just said, a lot of times other power forwards did not guard Dirk. There was pretty quickly people realized to just start employing like small forwards on him. So Bruce Bowen was defending him, Trace McGrady was defending him. Like players like that would defend Dirk, and it was just because like he was just a fucking nightmare for any 7-footer to try to like chase around, especially like pin downs and floppies that they utilize him on. And yeah, they used to utilize Dirk off of floppies like he was like an actual wing. It's actually kind of impressive what he looks like in the earlier stages. But when he went against other teams, we saw him struggle against McGrady. Then that kind of manifested into what happened in 2007. And then from that moment on is when he was again a bit more solid in the post, and I think that's the iteration of him that where he just stopped fighting with like smaller wings. It was like I'm actually 5 inches taller than you, so I'm just going to shoot over you, and there's nothing that you can really do about it. And I think that's where Dirk kind of really pieced things together. But outside that, yeah, I think that's it. The other thing I always give grace for Dirk is that consistently was leading those teams to like high 40s or 50 wins in a very competitive Western Conference, and was doing so while also losing talent because he started off the 2000s runs with Nash and Finley, and eventually Nash left, and eventually Finley left, and he was still like churning out some of the best offensive teams in the NBA on a year-to-year basis. And then obviously, as we all know, that kind of manifested into the 2011 run, which I think unfortunately a lot of people use that run and they forget a lot of the other years, like Mars kind of highlighted as well. But it is what it is. As long as he gets the recognition that I believe he deserves. So yeah.
Yeah, from 01 to 2011, which is probably what I would deem Dirk's prime, the Mavs won 50 plus games every single year. 53 and 01, 57, 60, 52, 58, 60, 67, 51, 50, 55, 57. Dirk's ability to just churn out consistent high level offenses in particular in the regular season was just very impressive. And quite frankly, like they lost Steve Nash, and you know how I feel about Steve Nash. And then like in 06, they were the best offense in the league. With no Steve Nash.
It's interesting. Interesting how that works, huh? Interesting how that works.
He was good. I'm not to tell you, he was good. But yeah, also just real quick, Dirk's ability to get to the free throw line and shoot 90% is extremely valuable.
Also, era, grossly underrated
yes.
aspect of this game. Yes,
absolutely, just extremely valuable. Just in any era, 90% free throw shooting on high volume is valuable. But in an era like the mid 2000s, early 2000s, that's extremely valuable half court offense. Just being able to get someone who can get free throws on command and basically guarantee you 2 points in a half court possession. Extremely valuable. But shout out to Tracy McGrady for amazing defense in that Rocket series in 05.
If I'm not mistaken, outside of Shaq and Stoudemire, I think he is the highest true shooting throughout the 2000s of any volume scorer. When I can't,
sounds accurate. That sounds
accurate. Yeah. Because I think after Shaq and Stoudemire, which obviously are all in the paint, I think it's Dirk. And if you want to count Ray Allen as a volume shooter, then he
had Allen. A year, I believe.
Damn, I was expecting it to be Allen Iverson. Damn.
Okay, no. And then after that, it's the Wade, Kobe, and LeBron lump. But Dirk, yeah, Dirk is nice, bro. Dirk is nice.
Amazing. Real quick before, are we getting into our top three? That is our top three, right? That we're getting into.
Yeah, we're getting into our top three.
It is our top three. So right quick, gonna read some super chats. SMNR and DM said, "Can someone explain what did he do? What the activism is about by not adding him?" Low explain that. Just whatever. And then Miles left. Shout out to Miles. Said August 29th, your time is up, buddy. Dub show, dub panel. He is talking about the release of NBA 2K26. I will be there. Absolutely, I will be there. We'll see if the game is good this year. But anyway,
timing rebounds is nuts.
It is.
Hey man, I don't put rebound on my builds. I'm gonna be all right. Anyway, number 3. This guy had 136 points. I think it's quite obvious who it's gonna be. 10 more points than Dirk. I had him at 4. John D, you had him at 4. Low, you had him at 3. ZZ had him at 3. Tyler Hoop Venue had him at 6. Chill had him at 5. Real Talk had him at 2. Ox had him at 5. Ron had him at 4. KB had him at 3. Pirate had him at 4. Gifted had him at 4. Not Giannis. Penn had him at 4. Riv had him at 3. Carson had him at 4. Dream had him at 4. Swiper had him at 3. Jordan had him at 6. And Sean had him at 2. We are, of course, talking about Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's who we are talking about. 6, I think, is a bit.
6 is ridiculous.
Yeah, 6, I think, is a bit interesting. Yeah, I'm not in agreement with 6. I don't understand how a guy like Charles Barkley can still be over him at this point. I want to just start by saying I think Giannis's longevity is getting underrated. Because it's still ongoing and because he's still one of the, let's just be low-end estimate, because he's still one of the 3 best players on the planet, people I don't think are taking into account how long he's been one of the 3 best players on the planet and one of the 5 best players on the planet. We're talking about someone who ascended into real superstardom in 2017, 2018. We are now getting on to 7-8 years of superstar level performance. 2017, the 2016-17 season when he wins most improved, I could argue he's one of the 10, 15 best players on the planet already. We're looking at someone who's been all-NBA caliber, all-NBA first team caliber for 7-8 years already. That's amazing longevity. then we're looking at someone who provides maybe more downhill pressure than anyone in NBA history, not named LeBron James. Someone who is, also shout out to Charles Barkley, monster in transition. I forgot to say that during his segment. But Giannis Antetokounmpo, maybe the best transition player ever. And when I say transition player ever, both sides of the ball, transition offense and transition defense. One of the best players in transition I've ever seen. As a scorer, there's nothing you can do in transition with him, whether that's him getting the ball off a rebound, whether that's him filling the lane. There is nothing you can do to stop him from getting to the rim and getting a shot he wants that you will either foul him on or he will just convert. Then the improvement on his playmaking that has happened in the last 4 or so years has been astronomical. Younger Giannis, MVP Giannis 2019, 2020, wasn't the greatest playmaker, wasn't someone who can make adequate reads against the wall that teams used to build. But then as he saw that defense more and more and he adjusted, and also the Bucks roster improved, he became more comfortable making the reads against that type of defense. That defense now just functionally doesn't work against him because of his ability to find guys in the corner. He's even improved at finding guys on the interior. Maybe he can play next to some bigs who aren't necessarily stretch bigs. I don't know. They do have Miles Turner. But just there's not many holes in his game, especially offensively now. He's added the mid-range game. He's someone who's become more refined in the post. Just as counters, not something that he's going to be an amazing mid-range guy. It's not something you want him to go to. In the regular season, I would say he probably went to it a bit too much. But having it as a counter is extremely valuable. I'm gonna be just completely honest. I do think it raises the floor of his scoring in the postseason. Still one of the best rim finishes in the NBA, and also something that I deem really valuable. He's cut the threes out of his game pretty much completely. We don't need to see Giannis shoot threes. There's no reason for it. There's just absolutely no benefit to Giannis shooting threes. He's cut them out of his diet. Ideally, he would have cut them out for some more rim attempts instead of mid-range attempts, but progress is progress. Also peaked as one of the best roamers of all time, one of the most impactful defenders I've ever seen in that 2019-2020 era. I do think he's declined on that side of the ball somewhat, but still one of the best offensive players in the league, one of the most dominant scorers in the league. When he is healthy in the playoffs, he does seem to play well more often than not. But the knock on him and why I only have him at 4 is because of the lack of availability in the playoffs over the last few years. We are talking about someone who since 2022 has only played 8 playoff games. And some of them, he weren't even healthy. In 2023 against Miami, he was playing with a bad back. Just the lack of sample size, the lack of availability at times just does hold him back slightly from breaking into my top 3. But peak for peak, I can make the argument he could have the highest peak. I can make that argument. That's how good I think Giannis Antetokounmpo really was. But easily a top 3 power forward peak ever. Really high on Giannis. Is anything you guys want to add?
Giannis, man, Giannis. I agree with you when you said the improvement as a playmaker. Because when Kawhi was guarding Giannis in 2019, quotation marks heavy on the, but he just was not the best at making reads, finding the corner shooters, and the lack of shooting that that Bucks roster had. They had like Eric Bledsoe in the corner, like, to be honest, like, but now I can see him in a true point forward role consistently, and I think that's what's going to happen this season coming up. Just play a bunch of guys like Gary Trent, Taurean Prince, Miles Turner, and AJ Green around him, and let him get downhill and let him make the proper passes. I think as an offensive player, this is probably the best he's ever been. But then again, there has been a decline defensively to where you could argue Giannis in 2020 and 2019 is his peak. You can argue right now is his peak. I don't know. I don't know. I think I would lean 19 to 21, but 23 to 25. The only thing for me that would be the separator would just be like the playoffs, missing in 24, playing injured in 23, 25, just only having a 1 round sample size where he was really good.
Really good.
But yeah, exactly. He was really good. It's just the team around him is completely awful. Yeah, I think Giannis is fantastic. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Mars. We are coming up on almost 10 years of a really good Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, I don't think offensively he's slowing down. And I think he could be moved to the small ball, not even small ball. I think he could be moved to the 5 and still be consistent as a rebounder. I just don't know about him anchoring a defense. Like offensively, I think he could be your 5, but defensively, I just don't know if you would want to risk that as much. But I could see a world where by the time Giannis retires, he could be number 2, number 1. I wouldn't say number 1, maybe, but I could see a world. Let him get one more playoff run. I can see it, man. I can see.
Well, he has NBA champion Kyle Kuzma on his roster, so he'll be all right.
Facts.
But Lo, what do you want to say about Giannis? He was obviously your number 3, so talk to me.
I'm in agreement with most of what y'all have said. There's not really nothing to refute. It's very frustrating when I hear people claim that he hasn't developed anything in terms of skill set, and he is like significantly a better passer now than he was in the beginning part of this like peak of his. I also believe that offensively he's just like reads the floor significantly better, and I do believe it's going to be very interesting to see what he looks like with a lob threat big and Miles Turner, who also can space out the floor. So I think there's going to be a very interesting dynamic, and I could very well argue what the floor spacing around him and how driven he is as a player. I genuinely, this might be like the best version of Giannis we see this upcoming season in terms of like everything that he can bring to the table. And I do think that even from a defensive personnel perspective, as long as they can provide like a point of attack for him, I do think like you could genuinely start to see better versions of Giannis moving forward. The only thing that I think that kind of holds me back with Giannis is, again, we all know the downfalls of Giannis is how much this offensive value translates to the postseason, because when it dropped off, it dropped off pretty significantly. To be fair, he has improved since then, but I would like to see it continue. And with the injuries in the postseason play, I just haven't been able to see that part. And then the other aspect, obviously, is if that mid-range shooting is real, because that mid-range shooting, I don't know about the mid-range shooting, but it is what it is. But overall,
the mid-range didn't translate this postseason, but it's only 5 games, so
I just need to see a larger sample size before I put him ahead of at least one of the names ahead of him. The other name, I think that he's not going to be able to touch, but one of the names that are ahead of him, I definitely can see him passing that other name.
Yeah, you need to chill out tonight. There's a major gap. But anyway,
it's not a major gap.
Yeah. Last thing on Giannis. I think his peak is 2020 to 2022. I just think the relentless rim pressure, alongside being one of the best defenders on the planet, is just more valuable than I think the offensive improvement that he has underwent recently. I do think this is the best he's ever been offensively, by a significant margin, by the way. Best decision making, best passing, best mid-range shooting, although the translation of that to the playoffs is yet to be seen. The biggest thing for him is just free throw shooting, in my opinion. If he can knock down 70% of his free throws, that changes a whole lot. That changes the dynamic.
Does that make him the best player in the league again? If he was a 75 to 80% free throw shooter, does he become the best player in the league?
That's a really good question.
I don't know. It's possible.
Test Giannis at
it's a great question.
It's really possible. It's really possible. I don't know. I guess the easy answer is I'd have to see it. If I'm being honest, I'd have to see it, but I don't actually know. I'm gonna just say maybe. Yeah, I'm gonna just say maybe.
I think Giannis also needs a better coach too, as a sidebar, but
you're not working with Doc Rivers.
It's not even just Doc. I think even with what's his name before
Bud.
Yeah, I think Bud was more honed into the idea of just maximizing efficiency instead of like really helping him grow his offensive game. I think he was just playing more in an efficient, calculator game of like drop coverage instead of like really maximizing everybody, and then like just having Giannis stand at the top of the key instead of putting him in positions. I think probably the best aspect of like Dirk's career, for example, is that he got to play with Nelly, then Avery, and then Rick Carlisle, where all three of them kind of challenged Dirk in various ways in terms of placement on the floor. I think Giannis needs another coach that will challenge him in terms of placement, where it's a bit more direct and concise, because even in postseason play this year, it still kind of feels like everything just reverted back to give the ball to Giannis and have court sets at the top of the key and let him just run at the basket as much as he can. I just think regardless of what defense you're matching up against, there's always going to be a cap to what that looks like.
Yeah. My I guess concern with Giannis, and I don't know if it's a fair one. Maybe you guys can let me know. The Bucks have never really been a good playoff offense, like ever. And I understand that not all of that is Giannis. Like, he's obviously a good offensive player. But I do think there is validity to the question of, can a Giannis-centric offense produce elite results in the postseason? Because of what you need to put around him, because of the unique archetype he is, because of some of the struggles he's had in terms of synergizing with guys. I'm obviously talking about Damian Lillard. Is that a real concern, or am I just maybe looking too far into it?
No, I ain't gonna lie. The Dame thing was very concerning for me. Like, his inability to like set a screen and kind of knowing where he needs to be to kind of like complement an offense off ball was like I was actually floored at how bad he was at that, which kind of furthers the point to why the other two are just better than he is, in my opinion.
I would like to see, because the last time we got a real run from the Bucks was like 2022. I don't think Giannis was as good as a passer and decision maker as he is now compared to when he was in 2022. I think with Giannis's added skill set as a mid-range shooter and playmaker, if you were to just build the proper team, I think they could be an elite postseason offense. I do understand the like concerns with him meshing with Damian Lillard. It really just seemed like he was screening to get the ball. It didn't seem like he was screening to get Dame open. That's why a lot of their possessions worked better with him and Dame and Brook Lopez, because Brook was really setting screens to get Dame an open shot and then roll. But I do think there are avenues to where the Bucks could be a really good playoff offense. A lot of it comes to roster construction and coaching, especially with the skill set Giannis has now. So I think it's concerning, but I wouldn't hone too deep into it until you like, if there's ever a world where Giannis just gets a better team put around him again to where he can compete for a championship, because I don't think he'll be competing for a championship this season, which sucks.
Yeah, because you're a hater. John Cena with a question. He said, my question would be, why did the Chris pick and roll work? And then there's another super chat that follows that right up and says pretty much the same thing. Unlimited Z said, I don't know, he has great synergy with guys like Middleton and Holiday in terms of screening action, but I don't know why Dame was such a struggle. Once again, I'm not a genius. I don't know the answer, but my first inclination would be that Chris Middleton in particular operated pick and rolls differently to Dame. Dame needs a big who's going to hold the screen and get him open, whereas Chris Middleton was someone who is very comfortable finding pocket passes, and Giannis is someone who's more comfortable slipping into open space. And because of Middleton's inclination to play in the mid-range as opposed to behind the three-point line, the angles that you need to screen at and then also being able to get out quickly is more valuable for a guy like Middleton as opposed to Dame. So Dame would thrive with a big like a Yusuf Nurkic, who's going to hold the screen, get Dame open, and then play out of it. Whereas Chris Middleton would probably need a big more like a Giannis, who's going to slip it, get into the teeth of the defense, and now he's playing with the advantage. So I just think, and that's what I mean. I'm not saying Giannis has no synergy with ball handlers or pick and roll guys. It's just his style of play thrives with a guy like Middleton, but maybe isn't able to adjust to a guy like Dame. And I'm not saying one way of playing is better or worse, but ideally you would want someone who's able to adjust on the fly, and be able to accommodate whoever the ball handler needs at the time. But then also on the flip side, some of that is also on Dame. Dame has to be able to be more comfortable playing with someone who's not going to hold the screen or who's not going to make contact, instead of just reverting into Brook Lopez pick and rolls because Brook Lopez is more comfortable holding a screen. So there was a lack of compromise in that. I'm not saying they didn't try to make it work. I'm just saying on the court there may have been a lack of continuity between those two. And I don't think that's necessarily a knock on Giannis, but just the reality of skill sets.
That's a really interesting film breakdown. Thanks, Mars.
Someone said, so you're saying Giannis and Luka wouldn't work that great? I wouldn't be that high on a Giannis Luka pick and roll, but I think the team would still be amazing.
I wouldn't be. I don't think that would be. I wouldn't be actually.
But the team would still be great. So no, I don't think anyone would be like, oh, yep, it doesn't work as they're rattling off 17.
Sorry, we're gonna see it. We're gonna see it next season. We're gonna see it next season.
I can't even call you crazy. I genuinely can't even call you crazy.
We're gonna see it next season.
John Cena did send a couple more super chats regarding Giannis. He said, "F the midi. He should practice free throws all summer." Is Giannis going to be a Eurobasket?
I do not know.
I think he is. I think all three of them are.
Okay, that should be interesting. Giannis tends to shoot free throws better at Eurobasket or just for Greece. I don't know what the difference is, but he tends to do that to shoot better. So we'll see if he translates that into the regular season. John Cena said, "Who's the best offensive power forward ever? 25 Giannis or Dirk?" My answer was, I think Dirk's the best offensive power forward ever, but you guys didn't give an answer, so I'm just asking you guys.
Yeah, I can agree. I agree with Dirk.
It's Dirk.
Okay. And then John Cena said Brook missed all of 2022 and Giannis anchored them. Yeah, the 22 Bucks, I think, are one of the better defenses in the league, and I think the Bucks have routinely put together some of the best postseason defenses of like this century. 2020, 2022, for example. I think I might be wrong on that though. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I'm pretty sure I've seen something to the effect of the Bucks have been some of the better postseason defenses in this century. So shout out to the Bucks. And then Napo said someone silenced the hood by chirping in the back. No,
it's me. I just moved into this new place and the landlord forgot to change the battery, so I just have it chirping in the back.
Yeah, and you're never going to change it because I see your complexion.
No, I have to change it.
Okay. We are on to number 2. This is another big gap. It's 136 points for Giannis. This guy has 164 points. Very big gap. Everyone had this guy on their list. I had him at 2. John D had him at 2. Low, you had him at 1. ZZ. I'm joking. Calm down, buddy.
Lose my mind.
Calm down. You had him at 2. ZZ had him at 5. Tyler had him at 2. Chill had him at 3. Real Talk had him at 3. Ox, Ron, KB, Pirate, Gifted, Pen, Riv, Carson, Dream, Swiper, and Jordan all had him at 2. And Sean had him at 4. So that does mean we do have another unanimous number 1 for the 3rd straight week. We do have a unanimous number 1. But we are talking about number 2. Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett is someone who I've been advocating for a little while. Someone who I think is one of the most slept-on players in NBA history. One of the best defensive players ever. I'm going to very comfortably say a top 5 defender in NBA history. One of the most versatile, portable, whatever buzzwords you want to throw out there. Kevin Garnett fits that description. Amazing passer, amazing playing off the ball. One of the better mid-range shooters in the league. He gets slept on because Dirk was the golden standard at the power forward position. But Kevin Garnett was very clearly the second best outside shooting power forward of any superstar capability. Really good post scorer. Didn't do it in the physical bruising way that would generate a bunch of free throws or easy shots at the rim, but really comfortable with turnaround jump shots, really good touch, really good in transition. Had the highest motor of all time, in my opinion. Some of the most unfortunate team situations of any superstar ever. Some of the largest carry jobs ever. I know the on-off data is very favorable towards him, especially in Minnesota. I believe in 03 and 04, Kevin Garnett's Timberwolves were like a +6 with him on the court and like a -15 without him. There's some of the most disgusting carry jobs we've ever seen, and he's able to get those teams to 50+ wins. I'm not even going to say why I don't have him number 1. I just think the reason I have him number 2, and I'm extremely comfortable, amazing longevity, amazing versatility, was able to scale his game up when needed in terms of being a floor raiser in Minnesota, was able to be a ceiling raiser in Boston, show his ability to anchor defenses at an extremely high level. I think the 08 Celtics are one of the best regular season defenses of all time. And I also think his longevity beyond 08 does get understated because of the torn meniscus in 09. By the way, the Celtics were very much on track to repeat in 09. I think they were 27-3 before KG went down. They were dominating the NBA. But then 2010 was a not great year for him. But once you get to 2011 and 2012, KG's right back to being one of the best defenders in the sport, one of the most impactful players in the sport. And he keeps that up for like another year. And then you go to Brooklyn and then it's kind of over. But Kevin Garnett's able to give you 15 years of elite defensive value, really good offensive value, some of the greatest defensive longevity we've ever seen, while being one of the most versatile, portable offensive players. Just overall an amazing player. I don't have much gripes or grievances with Kevin Garnett, besides the younger Kevin Garnett having some playoff scoring struggles because of his lack of assertiveness. I think that is what separates him from number one. Just the inability to generate the easy looks for himself. He did shy away from physicality quite often. It's interesting because the bravado and the stuff you hear is like Kevin Garnett was this tough guy, but then he played more like a wing than a power forward. He played quite finesse based, all of that stuff. So very interesting how the narrative is kind of away from reality in that regard. But yeah, I got Kevin Garnett number 2. We all have Kevin Garnett number 2. Is there anything you guys want to add to Kevin Garnett?
I do think Kevin Garnett's ability to be versatile, like one of the guys, I know that the term he can guard 1 through 5 gets thrown around a lot. I do think Kevin Garnett is one of those guys legitimately. The only big center I think he struggled against consistently was Shaq. But I think like against bigger centers, he did do a really good job defending in the post, switching in pick and rolls, being a roamer, somebody that had really good timing on his contest. It's just offensively, I do think with him putting the ball on the floor, he was very good at that. I think he was good playing at a pick and roll and in transition, a really good mid-range shooter. But then again, it's like early KG, like you mentioned, the strength part, just to really create the easiest looks, that's something I'm lower on. And his ability to scale down to the 5 consistently, like my number 1, that's something I valued when I compared the two. I'll talk about him when we get to him.
Yeah, man, we just need hurry to get to number 1, man. You already know how I feel about number 1.
Yeah, Lobie glazing is number 1 for no reason.
Oh, man, number 1. But shout out to KG, man. Everybody can't be number 1. KG, hell of a ball player, man. That strength, though, early on really killed them. Definitely one of the more versatile and portable defenders. Unfortunately, though, at that point in time in NBA history, that really wasn't what was deemed as valuable as just straight up rim protection and post defense. So he can't be better than the nigga that's at number 1. I do think, though, if KG played in the last, 10 years, he would be, a very interesting player. Because I do think that he also would have had the privilege to play alongside a guard that was more offensive leaning, where I think that is probably where he would have strived alongside with. And I do think that right there would have aided him throughout many of those years. And also just like a better offensive player, because he was probably more in line with being a play finisher than someone who had to constantly create. But outside of that, I give a lot of credit to KG for what he did in 08. I think what he did in 08 kind of further cemented who he was as an actual player. He just needed the proper pieces around him. And of course, I think to a certain extent, that is probably maximization to the highest order defensively, especially from a not just personnel, but coaching standpoint. But like Mars said, bro, they were on pace to look like they were about to run through the fucking league from 09 and 2010. And then when KG went down, they were still a really good team, but they just were not at the historic levels in which they were playing at before. And y'all already know how I feel about, awards like finals MVPs. Paul Pierce was not the best player on that team. It was Garnett. And the more you rewatch that 08 finals, the more you just start realizing how much Garnett was truly dictating what the Lakers could or couldn't do just on the defensive side alone. So I think Garnett is amazing. I think some of the, what we call basketball nerds tend to overstate his offensive value from time to time. But outside of that, I think that I think he's one of the greatest ball players of all time, top 20.
Yeah, just for I guess stats sake, in 08 and 09, when Kevin Garnett was on the court, the Celtics had a plus 14.27 net rating. When he was off the court, they had a plus 2. Jesus. So the difference between Kevin Garnett's presence was all-time dominance, and then when he's off the court, they're a good team. That level of ceiling raising is something that is extremely valuable to me. Just Kevin Garnett's an amazing player. I sing his praises all the time. One thing I think I do need to stop saying is that I go back and forth on 1 and 2 quite a lot, but more often than not, I end up picking our number one.
Yeah,
so that's
know.
like,
you know.
Yeah, I'm always like, it's a toss up, but somehow every time I flip the coin, it lands on the same guy. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a bit too. Maybe I'm giving too much grace. I don't know. But before we get into number one, everyone knows who it is. We do have a couple super chats. Unlimited Z just wanted to clarify. Yes, the 2019 to 2022 playoff defenses from the Bucks were all-time dominant. Trevi said, since we have the two biggest LA fans I know, which works best, a Jokic and Luka or a Giannis and Luka duo? What level of offensive only player is needed to be the GOAT? So do different questions. Which duo is better? And then the second part.
I'm not doing no Jokic and Luka. Holy fuck.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You're not buying into that defense? Jokic is A+ rated.
Please stop.
I'm not buying into that. Hell no. I'd much rather see Luka and Giannis than Luka and Jokic. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And then what level of offensive only player is needed to be the GOAT? So how good would you need to be on offense to outweigh the GOAT's two-way values, basically?
I guess LeBron post 2016.
Mix Steph shooting with Jokic's passing and Jordan's downhill ability, and I'll consider.
Okay, yeah, but okay. So he just described Kevin Durant, by the way. Just want to let you know, he just said.
I said Jokic's passing.
That is the most nasty shit.
Watch Kevin Durant Game 5 2021 and tell me you ain't see Jokic passing, but it's cool. Okay. And then Trevi said he's asking for players like Magic, Jokic, Luka, Steph, etc. Well, John D created a hybrid player, and that's what it would take. But anyway, number one, unanimous for the third straight week. MJ was unanimous on the 2-guard list. LeBron was unanimous on the small forwards list. And Tim Duncan was unanimous on the power forward list. For what it's worth, those two lists only had 18 people voting on them. So Tim Duncan actually has the most points total of anyone thus far with 190 points. He also has the largest gap between 1 and 2 at 26. Oh, no, he doesn't. Kobe sucks. Oh, wait, no. Yes, he does. My fault. Kobe does not suck.
Thank God.
Anyway, Lo, I know you wanted to do this episode for two reasons. To slander number 32, but to glaze Tim Duncan. Now is your chance. Go ahead and glaze Tim Duncan.
Where do I even begin, man? Look, dog. We can start it off from coming out the gate. Top 7 player in the NBA. Out the gate. We can have it as you start off your career as, I want to say, like, only 3 other players in NBA history who could have made the argument, or 4, I guess, because back then all defensive team didn't exist. But first team All NBA, first team All Defense, out the gate. You can also start off as you were not only able to win a championship your second year, but in your third season, when these arguments of how stacked the roster is, you go down before the playoffs begin, and your team can't even make it past the first round against a Phoenix Suns team without Jason Kidd, and going up against, I can't remember what his name, played for the Bulls, some big that played for the Bulls, and then last year, and David Robinson can't carry his own offensively. We can continue to then go that you become the only player who beat Shaq and Kobe not once but twice, and did so in an 0-3 series where David Robinson is at the end of his career, and Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, as I famously say, are rookies and sophomores. You can continue to go down the line and just watch the ball games. And despite many people loving to suck off Greg Popovich, that offense and defense ran through one man, and it's the person we have at number one. The player who had the responsibility of anchoring both sides of the floor for effectively the first 7 to 8 years of his career, and did so effectively that it not only resulted in multiple 51 seasons, in multiple trips to the finals, but also multiple championships, multiple MVPs. And I believe after Bill Russell, the only conversation of being the next best defensive player is Hakeem. If you want to throw Wilt, because I've seen some more Wilt game where it's like, okay, I can see Wilt in that convo. But I genuinely think that the things in which Tim Duncan was doing at that point in time defensively is like, I don't think it's stated enough. And unfortunately, we don't have enough on-off numbers back then to really get an understanding of it. But there's a lot of things that point in the direction that Tim Duncan is like one of the most important defensive pieces in the modern NBA. And in an offensive side of the floor where he definitely hurts himself the most, especially post 07, he's just not the same offensive. He's not the same player, period. But that, I think it was a meniscus. And yes, the player is Luke Longley, who was playing for the Suns. I think he had a torn meniscus in the 2000, right before the 2000 playoff run started off. And then he slowly started having more and more knee problems. So post 2007 and definitely post 08, he's just not the same player that he was anymore. Really on both sides of the floor, but it really impacted him offensively. But I also just applaud Duncan for adjusting how much he could adjust to allow that success to continue to carry over. And even though his defensive may have wavered a bit, still had really great moments on the defensive side of the floor beyond the 08 season. I just think that too many people, I think there's a gross misrepresentation of Duncan, those Spurs teams, the supporting cast he had around him. It's a lot of turning and moving pieces. It's a lot of overly depending on Tim Duncan, who should not have to have been the focal point offensively, but turned out to be that. And it's a lot of just overly depending on one player way more than people tend to make it seem like.
Now,
Go ahead, John B.
The thing I look at with Tim Duncan is that longevity. 15 of the 19 years Tim Duncan played, the Spurs had a top 5 defense. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that's all on Duncan. He had some great personnel around him. But Duncan was very, very valuable to every single top 5 defense throughout those years, in my opinion. The polish of the post game, the mid-range jumper, the little sidestep mid-range jumper that he can go to, the ability to play on the perimeter earlier in his career, get downhill, get to the basket, play in space, the timing of his block shots, the rebounding, the post defense. Tim Duncan was really good, man. And a lot of people, they don't like the fundamentals. They don't like the fact that Tim Duncan wasn't too flashy. I like it. Them bank shots, them was cute. You can't lie.
Now he was entertained watching Tim Duncan. Okay.
You know what's also crazy too? Duncan doesn't get enough credit for when he needed to turn up the scoring value. There are series where it's just like he looks like all right, I can turn back the clock and I'm that player again. And I'm not even just going back to 2013. I'm talking about even like before that. There's certain series, albeit against the Suns, but there's series where he's like, I'm going toe for toe with Amar'e Stoudemire in terms of who's putting up just the most points, and he looks like very, very overwhelmingly dominant in terms of like his ability to just use his weight a little bit better than people give him credit for. And if anything, I think that's the biggest, for me, that is the biggest separator between him and Garnett, is just the pure strength that he was able to impose himself on other players to kind of give him a bit more stability on both sides of the floor. Also underrated passer.
7 against him, but okay.
Underrated passer too. Underrated passer.
Sure. Yeah, shout out to Amar'e Stoudemire averaging 37 against Tim Duncan in 05. But yeah, I guess. From 01 to 07, because that's as far as back you can go with the data, unfortunately. The Spurs were a +10 with Tim Duncan on the floor and were a -1.6 without him. So a large part of the reason why the Spurs were seen as this dominant force at the time is because of Tim Duncan, especially before Manu Ginobili comes into his own. Obviously, once Manu Ginobili arrives and is a really good player, then obviously, it's because of him, because he is the GOAT. But yeah, the defensive longevity is astounding. We are looking at someone who, from the moment he entered the league until the moment he left, his team never won less than 50 games. I understand they did technically in 99, but they were on a 60-win pace. So we're giving him that one. He entered the league 56 wins right away. Now we understand David Robinson also came back that season, so yeah, but 56 wins, then 37 wins out of 50, 60 win pace. 53, 58, 58, 60, 57, 59, 63, 58, 56, 54, 50, 61, 50, 58, 62, 55, 67. Now, interestingly enough, one of those 61 seasons, they lost to the Memphis Grizzlies in the first round.
We don't have to speak too much about that. We can just
manage Ginobili injury, man. Manage Ginobili injury.
We can skip right by it though. We can skip right by.
No, we ain't gonna skip by it. We just know Manage Ginobili's value, and Manage Ginobili's not available. They lose to the Grizzlies.
And also, when Tim Duncan is at 100%, they also lose as well. So,
and then the next year, they spun the block, decided, we're just gonna double team Zach Randolph, and then they destroyed the Grizzlies. But besides the point, anyway. Yeah, the defensive longevity, the rim protection, the fact that he used to get away with actively holding players down so he could block their shot. Disgusting antics. But it worked.
Wow,
very
such
effective.
A hater. I can't believe I'm hearing this.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
He did this last week with LeBron. I don't know if he did it with
you unanimous. Someone needs to get some pushback. But he had some tricks of the trade, we'll call it. Some tricks of the trade to improve his rim protection. He was probably the best pure paint protector in the sport at the time. Probably. Yeah. I don't think I'm forgetting anyone. Yeah. Didn't have the same level of versatility defensively as Kevin Garnett did, but to Lowe's point, his era didn't require it. It required the post defense, the paint protection, and he did that at a high level. Played defense within the scheme at a high level. All he was really also doing in terms of pick and roll was hedge, recover, get back, protect the rim. He did it while being the best paint protector in the sport. Really good rebounder, really good post scorer, one of the best post scorers in the league at the time. Someone who you could go to for consistent offense. He would draw double teams, fan kickouts. That was pretty much the early 2000s Spurs entire offense. It was get the ball into Tim Duncan. They're gonna double. We're gonna play out the double. We're gonna have good vibes, and then we're gonna play amazing defense. The longevity was amazing. I do agree with Lowe that the longevity offensively does tend to get a bit overstated because of the resurgence he underwent in 2013, because there is a little down period in between there, but still a really good defender, still one of the best defenders in the sport. I do think it's a travesty that that a defender of his caliber never won the Defensive Player of the Year. I think that's a travesty. Now, what particular year do I think he deserved the Defensive Player of the Year? 04 would be a good year. Even a year like 02 would be a good year. 03 would be a fair year. Like that period of time, I think is probably when you're looking at Tim Duncan maybe being a Defensive Player of the Year. But there's not much I can really add. You kind of said everything that needed to be said. I know you rehearsed this, and there's a reason you asked to be on this episode in particular. It's because you be glazing Duncan a bit too much. But yeah, I mean, amazing player. Played just as much at power forward as he did at center. So technically could make both lists, but did peak at power forward. But I don't have anything else to add. Is there anything else that you guys want to add? Any more glaze that you feel is necessary?
I glazed them up enough, man. Okay,
thank God. Couple more super chats and then we'll get out of here. Mo said I still prefer KG because you know ball. Trevi said John D, will the Lakers finally give Luka a lineup that he'll log 400 plus minutes within the regular season? Only 1 year so far with 300 minutes from a 5-man lineup. So will Luka see some continuity?
I think so. Well, to be honest, if it were me, a couple of guys are still like waiting to get out the door. So he pushed out the door if I'm the Lakers. But I do think there could be some versatility to our lineups this season. Depending on who we have coming in the door, but I do think DeAndre Ayton could be used pretty well in LA. I think Marcus Smart is going to be very valuable to what the Lakers are trying to do, especially being a point of attack defender. Maybe this is going to be my Lakers rant because we just re-signed Luka, and I dare a motherfucker to try to tell me the Lakers had a bad offseason. I dare you. Anyway, I think the Lakers should trade Austin Reeves. I think we should trade Austin Reeves. I just don't think, and I love Austin Reeves. Love watching him. I just think you can't have a lineup that disgusting defensively when you're trying to win. especially with a 41-year-old LeBron James. I just don't see a world where you can go through the Western Conference when Luka and AR are your starting backcourt and they're going to struggle that bad defensively. Austin Reeves isn't as bad as a defender as people make it look, but I would argue it makes it look a lot worse when Luka's next to him and there's no Anthony Davis. Like there were points in the playoffs with Anthony Davis where Austin Reeves would give you good effort, and he would be competent at times. But I truly do think Austin Reeves might be one of our best assets, if not our best asset. And it's time. I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping, but I think that's something we need to do.
I agree. We can keep it short. I agree.
Yeah.
Luka lost weight, so he about to play some defense next year, but you guys not ready for that. But
you better not. Hey, I'll never let it go.
Well, defensive team, I'm telling you. Watch.
I will say this though, making moves because of LeBron, like that nigga's not going to be on the team after this year, bro.
Yeah, I get that, but I still do.
Huh? Is he what?
Is he not
going to
not
be?
After this needs to be the last year LeBron is on this roster, bro. I ain't gonna hold you. Really and truly, he don't need to make it past the deadline.
Drink more water.
Get him off my team, man.
The same way I think the shooting guard position changed the least over the years, I think the power forward position has changed the most over the years until now. I'm going to predict the power forward position won't change much heading into the future.
The reason why it's not because the power forward position really doesn't exist anymore. I think as time progresses, like we're probably going to put Tatum as a small forward, even though he's probably going to end up playing more power forward than anything else. So like
Kevin Durant's been a power forward for the last 6 years. So.
Yeah. Like even LeBron has played a lot of minutes at power forward, but we still just view those players as small forwards. The power forward position is like in a very interesting realm. To be fair, also though, I do see a lot of teams going back into double big lineups in that the power forward and five are just like more talented in some ways. So the Evan Mobleys of the worlds, I guess if you consider Chet power forward, like Chet as well with Hartenstein and Mobley with Allen. But the threshold of like what a player looks like at the power forward position to be as good as he needs to be, it's just a really high threshold of skill that needs to be possessed at that position. That's kind of the problem right now.
Shout to Şengün and Steven Adams.
Okay.
Trevi said, does the value of offense and defense stay the same for you three across the eras, or does it change? If yes, how do you adjust the value for them? It changes.
I think you made a really good point one episode, Mars, where you said in the 60s defensive.
I did make a good point. Yeah,
that was a really good point. So I can agree with that. In today's
What
era,
was the point?
Defense was more important than offense in the 60s.
See, what a great point. What an amazing point.
I think that was a really good point.
I think it's the opposite though.
Yeah, but that's because you're not good at making good
what do you think is more valuable in the 90s? Defense or offense?
In the 90s?
I think it's different at the early 90s and the late 90s.
In the late 90s.
I think the late 90s, I think defense is more important.
See, I think it's offense.
Why?
Because I think defense was at such a premium. Not a premium, so accessible.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah,
so the rarity is what makes it more important.
Yeah, because I think that like same thing goes like the early 2000s. It's just like so difficult to find like competent, efficient volume scores. And not only that, volume scores who can like read and pass. That's the reason why once like Hakeem and Malone were in competent offensive schemes, that they saw just significant improvements in their team success because they were able to read, and why GP and then obviously Jordan just saw a lot of success because they were just those caliber offensive weapons.
Let me change my words.
Got Mars changing his words?
No, because if you watch what I said, if you actually watch what I said in the 60s was individual defense was more impactful than individual offense. That's what I said. And what I mean by that is an individual could have more impact on the defensive side of the ball in the 60s than they could on the offensive side of the ball. Talking about a guy like Bill Russell, a guy like Wilt Chamberlain, because of the confines of the era, because there was no 3-point line, how valuable rim protection was could change a franchise, could change a team more than any other era in basketball. So when I say more impactful, I think that's a more fitting words. More important, I understand the rarity argument that something's more rare it becomes more important because if you have it, no one else does. I can understand that, but more impactful, yeah, I think defense was individual from an individual standpoint. Individual defense is more impactful than individual offense in the 60s. Trevi with another super chat. Shout out to you. He's going to help me pay for that USA Sports on DVD. Do you two believe they should trade the first round pick now or save for next year since it will allow them to trade 3 unprotected plus multiple swaps next year?
That's a good question. I think it depends on the offer. You know, if there's a good enough offer to where you don't think twice about the first round pick, nah. If you don't think twice about the first round pick, send it out. You know what I'm saying? If it helps get us more defense on the wing, I'm cool with that. You know, I think it depends on the offer. I don't think like just stacking up picks isn't gonna be the best because like you don't know what's gonna be available, you know, and then you just have draft picks. And it's not like the Lakers have the best track record of developing guys. So
respect Bronny's development.
I was about to say, what are you talking about?
I'm just saying,
Bronny, Austin Reeves, Rui.
I mean, Austin Reeves, Rui. I'm talking about like drafting, like
Dalton Connect,
Dalton Connect,
Kobe.
To be fair, we haven't had that many draft capital, that many draft picks because after the AD one, the AD trade drained a lot of us, and then LeBron forced Rob Pelinka, put a gun to his head to trade another pick to go get Dennis Schroeder. So you know,
I don't know. Maybe just at this point, like I haven't seen it to the point where it's like, I mean, Rui has gotten better. Austin Reeves for sure. I just don't know if that's the road we should be going down, trying to develop a bunch of players when we have a guy like Luka around. You know, like I can understand bringing in guys from the draft, but it's like if there's a good offer, I'm not keeping these first round picks. Like if there's a good enough offer that can help us win now, I'm not going to be like, oh, but we're going to draft these guys and develop them. You know, I would rather just go and get the 3-and-D wing that can play next to Luka and, you know, and build that spread pick and roll offense that Luka loves to play in. Like that's just what I would do.
I agree. Trade Luka, but you know, we're different, I guess.
I also think that should be an option because I don't know if they're willing to really sign Reeves to that contract. So that's my thought. But go ahead and go.
Yeah, I think Reeves may be gone by the deadline.
You're hoping he's gone, but it's neither here nor there.
Same with LeBron.
Oh my God. Before we get out of here, I just want to run down the list that was built again. We had 19 names in total. In 19th place, we had Scotty Barnes with 1 point. In 18th place, we had Bobby Jones with 2 points. Joint 16th place, we had Rasheed Wallace and Amar'e Stoudemire with 3 points. In joint 14th place, we had Chris Bosh and Dennis Rodman with 4 points. In 13th place, we had Draymond Green with 5 points. In 12th place, we had Chris Webber with 8 points. In 11th place, we had Pau Gasol with 11 points. And in 10th place, the top 10, Elvin Hayes, 26 points. 9, Bob Pettit, 31 points. 8, Kevin Mchale, 49 points. 7th, Anthony Davis, 69 points. 6th, Charles Barkley, 93 points. 5th, number 32 with 120 points. 4th, Dirk Nowitzki with 126 points. 3rd, Giannis with 136 points. 2nd, Kevin Garnett with 164 points. And for the 3rd week straight, a unanimous number 1 with 190 points, Tim Duncan. That was our power forward list. Next week will be the centers. I'm assuming that one might be unanimous again, but we will see. Actually, it won't be. I already know Real Talk's not going to have that guy number 1. So
it's not going to be unanimous. No,
yeah, next week will not be unanimous for the first time since the point guard list. So look forward to that. We don't know who's going to actually be number 1. But yeah, next week's centers list, everyone who is involved this week should be involved next week. And then we will end the series the week after with our official top 10s of all time with the cumulative Hoop Talk top 10s. Before we get out of here, I'm sure everyone watching knows, but Lo, where can people find you?
At your mama house. Nah, you can find me at Legend of Winning on Twitter, Low Posts, and Low Lights. I think I'm about to stream with Gilbert Arenas too. So name drop. I'm about to stream with Gil, talk about my top 20 lists. You know, there you go. But we'll see y'all then, man. We'll see y'all tap in later on.
There you go. Yeah, shout out to Gil. I'll go, by the way. He said I got cooked by FYF, so we're not fucking with Gil. John D, where can everyone find you?
You guys can find me over at the Buzzer Sports, where we do top tier draft content. We also will be talking about the Luka Doncic extension this week. We're going to be doing some film breakdowns, which we've been doing a lot more recently. And you also can find me on Diesel Talks Comics, where we just started a new channel talking about comics and comic book movies. I know a lot of people have been asking me on Twitter to start a channel where you talk about comics. So there you go. We'll be looking to get 1 or 2 uploads a week on that channel, talking about a lot of comic book movies. As you guys know, the Spider-Man full suit just dropped, so we're going to break that down in depth. Very excited to start that channel. But other than that, at the Buzzer Sports and Diesel Talks Comics, that's where you guys can find me.
There you go. Shout out to the new channel. Shout out to comics. I know nothing about him, but shout out to John D. Anyway, that does do it. Shout out to everyone for watching. Shout out to Lo for pulling up in the new habitat. Shout out to John D for being here as always. And then we will see you when we see you. Merry Christmas and goodbye, Dab.